Spinning away, and nobody open. Now he flips it up into traffic and makes a mistake. Trying to force the play, and it's intercepted. BJ Mays rumbling down inside the 10.
This is 365 Sports.
Bowling Green with no timeouts. Nick Singleton. Touchdown, Penn State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Klubnik, undaunted, unafraid, complete, Turner, touchdown!
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Why not?
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Jennings on the play fake, slides it upfield. Matthew Hickner off to the races. Hickner at the 30, full speed, and the big tight end goes 75. It's a Pony Express.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Thursday afternoon, and we appreciate your time. 365 Sports will take you throughout the afternoon. We will update the Big 12 baseball tournament momentarily. We'll get to that among other stories. Another school is accusing an FBS school, a Power 4 school, of tampering. That story and more. Brian Estridge, voice of TCU, will join us. Mickey Spagnola, Chris Hummer, 247, had an interesting story on the trends in transfers of blue chip players compared to even a decade ago, and Max Olson today at 4. But, guys, Craig and Paul, the College Football Playoff Committee had a call. They had a couple of meetings, and they are going to go straight seedings. There will be an $8 million hit for if you're the top 4 conference champions. But they will now go into a straight seeding for the playoff after 1 year of the first and only 12-team playoff. They've changed it to go straight seeding. Tell me who wins here and who doesn't.
Well, I think everybody wins here because the top, like you keep that top 4 seeded conference champion getting that $8 million. That was the only thing that the Big 12 and ACC, I'm sure, and everybody else had a problem with was like, okay, other than, it's going to be harder to get the first round bye, all that stuff. But, if we give that up and you're just going to take this money, that's more money we've just ceded to you because you want it. And so I think this works out for everybody. It works out for the fans, and that we have a straight-seeded tournament. It works out for all the conferences because you still get your money, and it works out for the two that are making all the rules because now they can stop whining about, the little things.
Well, first and foremost, the Big Ten and SEC win, and we're going to be saying that a lot. That's what's going to be the case probably more often than not because they basically are in charge of pulling all the strings now. So this is where the debate comes in as to how much you fight back if you're somebody like the Big 12 or the ACC on certain topics. And even if you do fight back, is it futile in the end? It's basically their world now, and this is something that they wanted. And I feel like the sports being somewhat like a bonsai tree, like paired and clipped to their liking and not necessarily to everybody else's. But I think there are people outside of those bubbles that also feel like this is a better move rather than the setup that we had with the top 4 seeds set up the way that they were. I mean, it was strange to see Arizona State near the bottom of like the top 10 rankings. And then because they won the Big 12, they're sitting there and, getting this advantage. So I do think it devalues the conference title even more, which is seemingly what every action has basically been almost, it feels like, is just kind of breaking apart the conference championships the way that we knew them. But I'm not, causing a riot over this. I mean, you can kind of see this coming, and I think it does make sense. It's also something the NFL is discussing as well. So, I just wonder when you leave it in the hands of people, though, that are also voting, such as like the top 25, what kind of biases are there when they're ranking teams so that you might be a pretty good Big 12 champ or an ACC champ, but you're like 7th in the rankings because there's 6 teams from the SEC or the Big 10 in front of you. Will there be that bias baked in like there is with a lot of other things? That would be my one concern.
How about Notre Dame? They win. They don't have to be a conference champion. They could be 3rd, 4th, and not be a conference champion. And last year, remember, they had to play a game first before they played the next one. And so it's good news for Notre Dame. Let's see. The old barn cat. I asked everyone to give me an opinion on what you thought. I don't see yours for some reason. As long as the committee gets to choose the teams that it helps the Big Ten and the SEC and Notre Dame.
Yeah, that was my initial thought was that they just get more of and I had the weird bonsai comparison, but I see them clipping and cutting this thing exactly the way that they want it to their exact specifications with little input or care for anybody else, as much as they are keeping their ears open and letting Brett Yormark or Jim Phillips say what they want to say. I don't know that it really matters in the end. And so this is the era now where everything is basically going to be controlled by those two, and everything is going to be therefore benefiting those two. And I think this is something that definitely benefits them more than it does the others. And so get used to that, because that's the way it's going to be on pretty much, I think, everything from here on out. And so that's where my concern is that, you might be a champion out of the ACC or the Big 12 or wherever, and you get the whole song and dance of, well, you didn't play the regular season schedule that we played. And that's why Ole Miss, even though they finished 5th, is like a higher seed than the Big 12 champ. I can see that scenario. And maybe that's a little exaggerated, but I don't think it is by much when you're talking about the same folks that want 4 automatic bids as is. So
Steven saying in the chat, appreciate your feedback. I asked for it. Very intrigued by the approval of the new college football seeding process. The same thing was just rejected by NFL owners. Also, Paxton, he even texted me. He said, it is now back in the hands of the committee because they seed everybody. So that'll be interesting, the power struggle that might be going on within the committee.
Yeah, well, the Lions withdrew that proposal. They were the ones that had come up with the straight seeding idea, and they withdrew it for whatever reasons that they did. So I think in the NFL, winning the NFC still matters a great deal, or winning the South or the West Division. And that's what I mean at the top about just the conference champions of, it matters in that you're going to be in the tournament, but that ability to also have that bye or have that advantage for being a conference champion, that's basically out the window now. And it'll be, instead of a group of people sitting around a table further dictating who they think are the best teams in the country, and randomly when they need to, citing whatever statistic like game control or body clocks to justify their rankings week in and week out. So I don't like necessarily giving them even more control, but that all the controls in a couple of places. And again, that's what we're going to be seeing with pretty much all the decisions from here on out is those two leagues doing what they want to do and how they want to do it.
Kim Coulter, I hate it. Once again, this disadvantages the Big 12.
Yep.
In a smaller degree, the ACC. You'll see the top four always be the SEC and the Big 10 teams. Bull poopy. And then, of course, we mentioned Notre Dame would be a part of that.
I get all that, but I just think that straight seeding in this instance is like they were gonna have to give something up. I hope this leads to.
I saw a report by Ross on that.
We gave you this, like we went straight seeding. Now this AQ thing, let's kill it.
Okay, the give and take, and I don't know what it was last year, Paul, but it's a great question, a great comment. Is that Dellinger said that each conference champion, no matter if they're a top 4 seed or not, gets $8 million.
So there you go.
There you go.
So
that was part that. I think I sent that out along with all the other stuff. Let me make sure I have that correct because I want to make sure I did get that right. Yes.
Well, for example,
the decision is okay. Go ahead.
For example, in the 2024 format, you had Arizona State that ended up with the number 4 seed, and they got a bye as a result of winning the Big 12 along with Oregon and Georgia and Boise State. I know Boise's kind of one of the ones that ruffled feathers as well, but under this one, Oregon's still where they are at number 1. Georgia's still where they are at number 1. But instead of Boise at number 3, Texas now gets a bye. And instead of Arizona State at number 4, Penn State.
That's based on last year's seeding. Yeah, last year's 1.
That's what I said. It's based on last year if you're under this year's rules, or the upcoming rules. So now Texas and Penn State both get byes, even though they lost their conference championship games because they would have been seeded higher based on this. And so instead, that means Boise now goes from being 3rd seeded and getting a bye to now being the 9th seeded team and playing at Indiana. So they go from being a bye team to now being on the road in the first round. Arizona State goes from being the 4th seed and a bye team to now being the 11th seed and being on the road at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, yeah, like, man, that's great news for –
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, Notre Dame would still have to play in the quarterfinals or whatever round that would be. They would not be among the top 4 based on last year. Yeah.
No, it's based on last year, so they weren't a top 4 seed. But I'm giving the example of those who were, and Oregon and Georgia don't move at all. The other two aren't getting byes, and they're now at the bottom, and they're on the road, as opposed to having at least one less game because they won their conference. So, yeah, you don't get any benefit from this because you're also not going to have many years when an Arizona State or whoever it might be is going to get the level of respect, I feel like, where they are a top 4 team unless they're like 12-0.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're 10-2, guess what? They're not in the top 4.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably like a 9 seed. And so I don't think that's great. I also see from the other standpoint of if you don't care about those schools, which a lot of people don't, then you don't think they deserved it to begin with. And so that's the other side of the argument is that's what Arizona State should be to begin with. They should have been a 9 seed. They didn't deserve a bye or whatever. They didn't deserve to host a playoff game. They deserved to be on the road. So that's the other side of the coin. But, yeah, if you look at it from last year and you look at it from the pro Big 12 or pro Mountain West or whatever type of perspective, which may not have bothered you last year, but I think if you're the ACC or other conferences like the Mountain West, it should. Then yeah, today's not a banner day by any means. It's just further disadvantage that you already had. So yeah, like I said, those two are making all the rules now, and there just seems like there's not a mountain wide enough, tall enough to where there's like, all right, we finally have enough on our side. We're going to give a little bit here. It's like, we're going to tilt this baby as much as we possibly can that you're going to be begging for a Super League at some point.
Yeah, we'll hear from Max Olson today on that. Even Brian Estridge, TCU broadcaster, on it, what he thinks, and Chris Hummer a little bit in the 4 or 5 o'clock hour. I have reached out to a handful of people to get their thoughts about what this means to college football in their opinion, and not just those who are attached, by the way, to the Big 12. Also, this one. It has been paused. The Presidential Commission for College Football, a move rooted in its potential impact to Senate negotiations over college sports legislation. This thing has hit the pause button. One other note on that as well, and you guys are going to love this, Ross Dellinger saying that, by the way, officials in the SEC and Big Ten privately held concerns over the commission's concepts.
Yeah, I wonder what those could.
So
those
it's on
particular
pause.
Concepts
Yeah, not that it would have worked or
Like,
anything, but it's on pause. Yeah.
I'll just tell you that when you leak the idea of something happening, and then one of the guys that you're bragging about being on it is like, I don't know if we need this. And look, I know that there are other things here, the bipartisan commission, which has Ted Cruz and Cory Booker on it, among others, that are working on this. But when you leak this out and the guy who's like, yeah, I mean, I'm the face of this thing, but I don't know if we need it, says those things like, yeah, I don't know that much about it, but if they ask me my opinion, I'll give it to them. Like I would pause it just to like make sure that, when you ask like Nick Saban, hey, I hear you will be on this commission. He goes, hell yeah, I will. We're fixing things, as opposed to, well, we know what the issues are. I mean, I don't know if we need we've had plenty of commissions, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I think this is better for now.
So all that talk was for nothing, basically, about this commission. It meant absolutely zero in the end. And I think Saban killed it with his comments. He, whether intentionally or not, he definitely took a lot of steam out of the whole idea when he said what he said about not really needing one. And he was right. I mean, if you look deeper into the quote, he wasn't just throwing the whole thing out. He was just saying, like, we know what the issues are. We don't need a commission to tell us what the issues are. We don't need to spend millions of dollars and have multiple meetings where we go like, hey, you know what? This NIL thing's kind of out of control.
Is it?
Hey,
really?
you know what? Whatever. This transfer portal's kind of nuts. You know what? Sure, a lot of like near 30-year-olds trying to play their next season of college football under some loophole, waiver. So we already know all of those things that are issues or that have been sounded off on. So, yeah, I don't think there was a commission that was necessary to find those things out. That would have been a waste. But I do think there's, some definite need still remaining for some political intervention to some degree. That just wasn't the best route. So, I mean, he acknowledges that he's instead directing officials to strike a deal via congressional legislation. I mean, that's still what's needed at the end, so that doesn't change.
Whittington, just to remind us now on this college football playoff seeding being approved that it's still 2025, and guess what? That means all of the commissioners had to approve it. It had to be unanimous.
Yeah.
It had to be unanimous. So we can sit there and look at the ACC or the Group of Five or the Big 12 and all of that their commissioners, those are the ones who also had to approve this, not just Sankey and Petiti. So, Austin, thank you very much for reminding us of that because 2025 had to be unanimous. After that, it's Big Ten, SEC, and pretty much the $8 million. I'm going to have to go back and look at what that was. If you won a conference title, or I don't know if it was just a piece of the puzzle. Every time you were in another round, you got more money, or the conference did.
The compromise, and Ross Dellinger pointed this out, was that you still get your $8 million for being a conference champ.
Even if you're the seventh seed.
That's what swung your vote.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you weren't getting the $8 million, then what benefit is there to vote for that? Because I give you the Arizona State example, and that could change from year to year, but that's a massive difference having a first-round bye and then going and playing Texas neutral site and being totally fresh and all that. And guess what? If you're a Big 12 team or an ACC team that's not named Clemson or Florida State or Miami probably, you're going to need those buys like in this format, I feel like, to be able to maybe make a run. So because I just don't think everybody's built for game after game after game over the long haul. Some teams are just better suited for that. But, yeah, you needed to have a trade-off. So Arizona State, in this example, would get $8 million instead of that first-round buy. So that's what you voted for.
Also,
you're getting money.
I'm sorry. Wet blanket, they're pushing me further and further away, college football like the NFL. From BCN, in all caps, we don't do all caps, but we'll let you the first time. College football wouldn't miss the Big 12. Big 12 football doesn't move the needle.
That's fine, man. I mean, if you want to do the whole superiority thing, that's cool, man. There's a lot of people that enjoy it, and I get it. That's why I did the whole double side of the thing just a second ago of like, hey, if you don't care about the Big 12, then this isn't anything but a plus to you, and if you do, then this is why it sucks. So you're entitled to your opinion, and cool. Then whatever.
From Old Barn Cat K-State, they have already set their doom. They will bite the hand that feeds them. No one will care to keep watching the six teams keep playing over and over and over again. I mean, the six best teams in America, if it's, and that goes a little bit in cycles, it does. But that usually is going to happen anyway, even if it was the BCS or whatever. It usually. But I get what you're saying is that I don't think there's going to be a fatigue with who continues to play in the semifinals or championship game.
No, look, I think that, we also have to see what comes out of the revenue sharing and what, that might balance some things out. I know that, again, there's a lot of might here, but before you start, saying all these things and then having no faith in anybody outside of those two conferences that have had baked in advantages for a while, that's kind of defeatist, I think. And I think that you should know that, yeah, it's going to be tougher. It's going to be harder. It's going to be all these things, but it was anyway. At least, you're negotiating. I don't see a college football. I do see another realignment coming. I don't see a college football that's just the Big Ten and the SEC. I don't see the practicality in it, because if that's really all that everybody wanted, they could have easily done that already. They could have been like, you know what, you're right. We're doing all this, but no, they wouldn't sign TV contracts with the Big 12 and the ACC and all these things. They would kind of do that already. And then with all the litigation and things that are going to change, I just think we've got 5 years of watching this morph into whatever it's going to be. And the proof will be in the pudding of whether fans like it or not. And yeah, the straight seeding is probably going to make for better games in the first rounds. It's probably going to make for better games. It makes for better television, which also, look, I don't know if Ohio State, let's just say Ohio State beats Michigan, right? And they get the first round bye. They wind up that. Does Ohio State as a team, I'm just using this example, do they have the emotional momentum to go win the championship? Do they get fat and happy? Which happens sometimes, because now you're in a different scenario. They went to Tennessee pissed off, angry, and hungry, and showed everybody what they were made of.
I don't know if we've ever seen in college football any kind of boredom of winning.
No. I'm saying sometimes a bye week can hurt a team.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So they don't do it right. I'm just saying that.
But nobody's going to have buys now.
That's true. Yeah, once they go to
16 team playoff.
But this particular year, there'll still be buys. So who's to say that, say Arizona State wins the Big 12 again, they wind up being the 5th seed and playing the 12th seed. Well, maybe that's just the kind of piss and vinegar they're going to need to get through it. I know sports is cyclical. It's different.
It is.
I know that there's an advantage of having a bye, but also if you look at everybody who's ever had a bye, it's not 100%.
No, it's not. Here's from Rich Clark, the executive director, who we've had on this show many times. After evaluating the first year of the playoff, the committee felt it was in the best interest of the game to make this adjustment. This change will continue to allow guaranteed access to the playoff, awarding those teams that win conference championships, the 4 Power 4 conferences and the number 1 or highest ranked, group of 5. But it will also allow us to construct a postseason bracket that recognizes the best performance on the field during the entire regular season.
See, and so the issue that I just have with that is that's now very much in the hands of just people.
That's what Paxton.
And so that's what I mean is so now you're going to have people who we know have already done this before arguing that the 4th best team in this conference, and they might be. We had the anti-Big 12 comment there, which is fine, but maybe the 4th best team in the Big 10 is better than the ACC champ or something like that. But I don't know. We're just giving more of that human element, and I don't want to get rid of that, but I don't trust the committee. I don't trust the committee to do actually what's right. I trust them to make the best television product, which is not necessarily the goal of this thing for the fans or what the fans want. It's what the networks want. So that's the only issue that I have with that. But yeah, last year, the amount of crying and boo-booing over the first round of the playoffs, my God, it was
after
pathetic.
One game.
It was pathetic.
Yeah.
These grown people just whining about the first blowout and acting like the whole sky was falling on top of them in that very moment. My God, the dramatics back then. But hey, for those folks, they got their way. So now we will never have blowouts again. No, never again will there be a blowout in the playoff. You got your way.
Some money on the fact. How many games? And again, we hope that they're all great, but how many games will still end up being 20 plus
Probably half of them.
Yeah, probably.
Probably
yeah.
half of them.
Maybe even the championship.
Yeah, look, they're trying to avoid blowouts, or using that as an excuse is feeding the weak-minded of like, oh, well, I'm glad they're getting rid of these blowouts. No, you can have two teams. Like, look, Tennessee and Ohio State statistically last year were very, very similar in what they did.
Yep.
And what happened?
Yep. There was a
At
blowout.
Tennessee in a 100,000-seat stadium. What did Ohio State do?
Beat the hell out of them.
Yes.
Hey, by the way, wouldn't it be better just to go back to what we had before a long time ago? We're not going to, but would the BCS rankings actually be a better way? Would it at least maybe take away some of the human element? Not all, because there's still a lot of things that are entered into a computer.
I don't know. I just feel like we spend just as much time trying to correct things that we are supposedly fixing or repairing, and then now it's just more changing. And I mean, I would love to just find a format that fits, and I think that's what they're trying to do. But now it's just like the lid's been blown off, and it's all boiling over. And so now, like, how much can we just squeeze into the postseason? Oh, 16? Okay, let's go to 16. And so those days are far and gone. It doesn't matter if the BCS would have been a better way to do it. That's probably not in the cards anytime soon. I did not prefer the 4-team playoff. I would have liked to have seen last year's have a little bit more room to breathe than we get this year, but then it's over with. Just like that, boom, 1 year of evidence, and they're already like, nope, we're changing it. So I don't know, maybe 12 would have been great, but we're not going to even let that breathe a little bit. So the answer is more teams, and maybe this is the right format. Maybe everybody having first-round games and not having buys or straight seeding, maybe that is the answer to it, but I'm still of the opinion that unless it was going to be the old way of like it's just the AP polls basically deciding things, and you're doing your traditional bowl games, and one's not playing 2, but one might play 4, and 2 plays 5, or whatever the case may be, I'd go to that before I'd go back to the 4-team playoff. I felt like the 4-team was such a blue balls thing of it might have been the elite of the elite, but it also left a lot of that maybe out of it that I just thought it was too small a pool. So that was the one format that I do not like at all. I get why it was intriguing, and I get why we did get like the best teams per se, but we still got blowouts. We still got TCU
Absolutely.
getting blown out by Georgia.
And we still got blue balls.
And we still got blue balls. So I'm actually, I don't want to see the Mike Leach 64-team tournament. I don't know how I feel about 16. I'm going to let it breathe. I'm not going to have a hot sports opinion on this until we actually see it in full practice, but I did not like the 14.
There was a hard sports opinion at halftime of the Indiana game against, who was it?
The Knicks?
Notre Dame. No, I'm talking about in the playoff. I mean, it's immediate. That's the way, and a lot of that is from social media because people are seeing or their comments or reactions are immediate, like even at the first series. One of the things about the old way, the AP and what was the UPI, then there was the coaches poll, is that the thing about that is you never really you still had what were many undisputed national champions. You had split championships. The world didn't end. You had teams that split national titles. It didn't mean that the season was a waste.
But and that happened rarely.
But the other part of that was that the Sugar Bowl was attached to this, and the Orange Bowl and the Rose Bowl, whatever, that would have to change too.
Yeah, I mean, that's all stuff that's not going to even matter because it's not going to happen. So I don't even want to spend the time figuring that out because it's not realistic that they go back to that. But, I mean, you're still having a committee. It's just not named the Associated Press, and it's not named the coaches. They're still the ones, though. It's still a committee, just like the coaches poll or just like the AP poll that at one point decided things like where people were going for their bowl games or who the national champion was. It's still a committee sitting there sorting all these teams out. So it's not all that different as far as the human element goes and all that. So I'll keep an open mind on this, and I don't think the sky is falling. I do think that some leagues are at further disadvantage than they already were. And like I said earlier, for some people, maybe that's the way it should be because they didn't deserve this or that to begin with. And then for others who are fans of those brands, it's another kick in the gut of just making that uphill climb that much more vertical than it already was. So we'll see how it looks in practice here in a couple of years.
Not easy, but go win games. That won't hurt either. And when you get the opportunity to a 4th and 13 against a great team like Texas, maybe sack the quarterback, maybe you get lucky, they drop the pass, overthrow. But all of that matters, and Arizona State gave it a hell of a shot. It just did not work out. So also, Paul Catalina, we've seen the presidential commission's on pause. That's fine. What is the one way in a quick, if you could, response that you think would fit the House versus NCAA settlement when it comes to NIL and paying for players or paying whatever? What is the way you think it would end? What's the one thing everyone needs to do?
I'm going to sing it to you. Collective bargaining.
Okay. So here is
R.
Tennessee's chancellor, the chancellor of Tennessee, and AD Danny White, not the former Cowboys quarterback, sitting down with the chancellor at UT, Tennessee. And this is interesting because Danny White is one of the few who has on the record said what Paul says we need to fix college football, or at least a lot of their problems. It's about a minute long, a lot of the problems. Is it not loading?
It did not want to work.
Okay. Basically, and Amanda Kristovich responded to the interview, collective bargaining is the only solution. That is Danny White, the AD at Tennessee. It's a massive statement because a lot of people don't want to do that because collective bargaining means that players have to be employees and schools are scared of that happening.
I'll count this as 3 I know for sure that are in favor of it. Ren Baker was in favor of it when we asked him in some form. Mac Rhodes was. I asked him straight up and down. He said, yeah, if that's the path, then I think we'll have to support it. And now Danny White. Jamie Pollard, he didn't say no. So, I think ADs are way more open to this than presidents are. And that's the problem, is that the ADs are the ones who know, but the presidents are the ones that have to look at the overall balance sheet of the university and then go back to boards, which are often politically appointed. And
the Tennessee chancellor agreed.
Yeah. So
she did. She agreed.
You want to try again? I just reloaded.
Okay, let's try it again.
Let's talk about the other change. You've ended up, in my view, is as a leader outside of UT, trying to do something about all this change that's happening so fast. Well, actually not fast enough, you might say.
Not fast enough.
No, I know it. So, how on a daily basis, how do you do both? You lead here, and I see you can't stop yourself from trying to lead there.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit. That your dad didn't have to do that, did he?
No, it's challenging, and I see you struggling with the same thing.
Yeah.
Our job is to lead the University of Tennessee.
Yeah.
But we also have a national issue in college sports that's a real problem.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about the Tennessee hat versus the college sports hat.
Yeah, there you go.
I've been probably wearing the Tennessee hat a lot more recently.
I've noticed.
Thinking about just what's our opportunity to be competitively excellent in this new world. But it's a real issue. We could go on and on about what we need, but I'll say it. We got a camera on us. I don't really care at this point. Collective bargaining is the only issue. It's the only solution.
It's the only way we're going to get there.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
All right, so that's from the University of Tennessee, the video up on Twitter. What
was it made, or they take the longest route possible to get to that?
Well, it was a sit down, I think, end of the year type of
summary.
No,
I get it. I was waiting for
at the end,
what we were watching that for, and then finally it got to the end.
LEDE, the lead of that conversation. But he's one of the few on record that has said that's what we need. Now, again, a lot of people will clutch their pearls because of that too, because it would mean a lot of things that the universities, presidents, chancellors, boards, or whatever don't seem that they want any part of that whatsoever. All right, and quickly, Paul, just for those they're 5 like me, in a short summary, why do colleges or universities not want collective bargaining? Because they become employees, and what does that mean?
That means there's a lot of complex issues like insurance, and there's more money you have to allocate outside of just salary or revenue sharing demands. There are a lot more things to negotiate. They don't want them to be employees because essentially, if you make college athletes employees, you are not doubling, but you're adding a quarter of the size of his staff.
Okay,
at a university.
But college athletes are under an insurance policy because they're representing, they're a part of a scholarship. That's part, they have that.
Yeah, but now that now you're giving them, because what they have right now is, I sign the contract, I get the insurance that you decided
provides for them. Yeah.
But now it's collectively bargained halfway through. If they're like, hey, we don't get dental. All right. So that's going to be another thing we're going to argue about. There's more negotiating with it. Right now, they can kind of rubber stamp what everybody gets, and it's the same, as opposed to have to negotiate it out. What they, I think, fail to realize is that you are going to have to deal with lawyers and representatives of players no matter what. You can do it collective bargaining wise, and you're going to lose money, but you're also not going to just throw money down a hole, because then you're going to eventually get money back. Or you can do what they're doing now, which is, try to be the heroes of the old school and run straight into the breach, only be like, oh, dang, we lost again.
General Irsay, who's a Tennessee fan, Chancellor Davenport and Danny White are ahead of the game. They both pulled UT out of the mud hole. It was stuck in for about 15 years. General Irsay, thanks for your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely much more relevant to the level of when I was growing up than they were for a good stretch there that you're talking about. Tennessee belongs in the greater conversation, and definitely one of the best schools as far as college sports goes. It's out there, so yeah, good to see them relevant again, the way that they probably feel like they should always be. You kind of forget that they were just sort of wandering there for a while, but these last couple of years have reminded you of the Tennessee brand for sure.
All right, there's been some discussion about the USC Notre Dame football series, which is one of the ones because of when I was younger and the historic nature of Notre Dame and USC. John Wilner wrote a story about this, the uncertain future of the USC Notre Dame series, like so much else about competitive landscape, is rooted in the distrust of, guess what? We discussed this in the first part of the segment, distrust of the college football selection committee. So this is all about, do you need to play this game? It's not whether you want to play this game. I think Notre Dame and USC would love to continue the series, but this comes down to this game being played, which is in the middle of a conference schedule, and how it would affect the possibility of either team, if they lose, not making the playoffs. But isn't that, if you were playing anybody else, that's going to happen? This is not just Lincoln Riley. This is also the president. President Cohen told ESPN, tradition is part of doing what's best too, so we're going to do our best to honor that and evolve in this space. She's the athletic director, appeared to walk back on Riley's comments about not wanting this game. Riley said, the reporters at Big Ten football media days a year ago, this has been a lot of teams that sacrifice rivalry games. In other words, they sacrifice by keeping these rivalry games instead of what's best for the program.
Who doesn't trust the selection committee? Because right now it can't be Notre Dame. They should have full trust in him. It shouldn't be a Big Ten team. I mean, especially USC.
Which is USC.
So I under like that, and look, Wilner got the quote, from someone, but yeah, I don't think that Lincoln needs to know that he's not, in West Texas anymore at a high school or at East Carolina. Like, you're at USC, go 10-2 and you're fine, and go 9-3 and you might be fine if one of those three is to an elite Notre Dame team. I mean, I think this is another case of worrying about something that probably doesn't happen to somebody like USC at all. And it's just more Lincoln Riley's gotten really cagey over the last couple of seasons because of what's gone on. I think this hurts them way more than it helps them to not play it and to, kill another rivalry in college football. But, if ultimately the coach doesn't want to play it, it's going to go away unless the coach goes away before the game goes away.
Yeah, and I think, too, you got to read the article. There's more at stake. It's not just like we don't want to play this game. It's about the timing of the game. It's where it is in the schedule. It's about the uncertainty of the AQs. It's about, it's not just we don't want to play anymore because if we take a loss, then we're going to not be in the playoff. That's so simplifying it, and that's not at all what John was getting at. It's more there's been comments, but if you read the comments from a Lincoln Riley, for example, it's not about – not playing them at all. It's about when and the reasons as to why and how that would look in the coming years. So I don't think it's off the table. It's just uncertain. It's not happening. just means that it's a little murky and they're figuring some things out. Now, the reasons as to why they're figuring out might be dumb ultimately and might be a worry that is a worry for no reason. But there's just so many things that people don't know right now that they're thinking everything over, just like we talk about scheduling agreements or adding another conference game and whether that's the smart thing to do or not if you're the SEC or any other number of things that have now become topics over these last few months. Everybody's looking at everything and seeing what the best path is for them moving forward.
Now, here's one of the things that Wilner also brought up in this rivalry is that during the odd years, USC visits South Bend in the middle of October, which is in the middle of the Big Ten schedule. On even years, Notre Dame finishes the year at the Coliseum in L.A. One of the parts about this is that USC will play this series forever, I would think, if they could play it in September. Paul, when is Notre Dame's conference schedule? Oh, my God, they don't have one.
Yeah, they don't have
even
to worry
though they're
about
attached to the ACC.
Yeah, here's the end of the article. The Trojans have offered a one-year extension to host Notre Dame in 2026, but are wary of signing a long-term deal because of uncertainty about the CFP selection process. What's more, the Trojans are interested in moving the game to the early portion of the season, a change that makes loads of sense from USC's perspective. So, yeah, you can't just headline read. You do that and they're killing USC and Notre Dame. They're not going to play ever again and blah, blah. And Lincoln Riley's scared. And no, you click read and it says, hey, we've talked about extending this, but here's why it doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I think the uncertainty is definitely there. It would be a shame if that went away, just like a lot of other rivalries that are potentially going to the wayside. But I think it's too soon to start carving up the tombstone. I think everybody, like I said, is just trying to figure some things out right now. And yes, there's going to be collateral damage to rivalries, or maybe when certain teams play at a certain time of year or where they play. And that's all just part of this process of absorbing all this information and everybody trying to just get through this smoke and find some clean air to breathe eventually at some point, hopefully soon.
Garrett, let's go to Louisville and discuss the Louisville Cardinals athletic department. Paul and Craig, Andrew Brandt, pretty good writer, right? Guy that covers the NFL. Mm-hmm. He is now and does podcasts and whatever. He is now a partnership with one of the most influential voices in sports law and business in Andrew Brandt. They have hired him to try to give them a new perspective or ideas or suggestions almost as a consultant moving forward.
Yeah, great hire for Louisville. He's a brilliant dude. We had him on the show back at the radio station a long time ago. I don't think we've had him on since we've been doing this podcast, but he's one of the best follows on Twitter when you're trying to figure out news and contract things, because he worked in the NFL for a long time. I think a lot of people thought he was Gil Brandt's son. He's not. But just that's a solid name for an NFL GM, but he's done a lot. So, yeah, I think it's a great hire.
As college athletics continues to evolve into a more professionalized model, we're positioning Louisville to lead, not follow, their president or vice president said, Josh Hurd. Andrew is one of the most well-respected minds in sports business. His insights give us a strategic advantage as we navigate this transformative period.
Yeah, I don't think it's any different than Oklahoma going and hiring Jim Nagy or any of the other numbers of moves that have been made. I mean, they're not all for the same job, but there's people being brought in from outside that have expertise in things like finance, handling rosters, and doing all those types of things that you need to do nowadays that maybe you weren't doing previously. When you could just have Bubba go put $100 envelopes in people's lockers, and it was that simple. Just make sure nobody sees you or whatever. Now it's like all a totally different ball game where you're probably direct depositing guys, right? And it's all out there. So you need people to kind of wrap your head around that, and people that know the business side. And he's obviously very well versed in working within a team and a franchise and figuring out all the different components that come with that. So yeah, just another one of those. In a growing line of hires of people who are bringing more of the professionalization to college sports, particularly in football.
The Office fan, never mind, Craig answered his question was, is this like Nagy? Yeah, at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I don't think it's not like like Nagy. I feel like it's going to be more personnel.
I agree.
I think I did clarify that there's a difference. It's just that he's the same as being another outsider, so to speak, being brought in to bring more of the professional style to what they're doing. But they're similar in that way, but as far as their actual jobs, I think Jim Nagy's much more of working with the talent and finding the talent and bringing the talent on board and doing those things, creating the roster.
Yes.
Whereas he's going to be a guy who's helping the monetary side and figuring out the payroll and, all those kinds of different elements of the business. So that's where, and the strategies coming up with, ideas and things like that. So there is a difference, I believe, but they're all under that new wave of people that are coming to college sports to fill in some of the blanks.
BCN, who came in hot and heavy earlier today about the Big 12, the Power 4 should play a 9-game conference schedule. Ding, ding, ding. We've discussed that. With every conference playing a game from the other conferences, which would give you 12, and the spring game can be the one when you play a cupcake and pay them.
I mean, I'd be all for all that. I'm not against any of it.
Yeah. What was the part before the spring game? The 9-game schedule, and then what after that?
With every conference playing a game from the other conferences. There's 4 Power 4s.
Okay, yeah, so you'd play somebody from the ACC, somebody from the Big 12, somebody from the Big 10. I mean, that'd be cool. Yeah, that'd be cool. I think you could get a lot of cool combinations. I do think, you'd have to have that gimme charity game somewhere. And I don't mean charity in a negative way. But, the game where you pay them $200,000 to come get beat by 60.
Now it's $1.2 million. Well, $1 million or two.
Yeah, I'm probably a couple decades behind in the payments. But that's why I've just hired Andrew Brandt to run my finances and help me out with that. But, no, I mean, I think that sounds like a really cool idea. I can already hear the pushback from the leagues actually wanting to do it, the ones that would probably immediately go, nope, but I like the idea. I do.
It will mean that you have to get the SEC and ACC.
And that's what I mean. That's why it's unrealistic. But if all things were equal and everybody was up for it and didn't have their ulterior motives or their own agendas, then that would be really cool, I think, for college football. You could do an end of year like the Sears Cup or the Directors Cup and what the overall records were, because everybody would have played everybody. So there's no you only played this many from this conference and that many from that conference. Or you didn't play anybody from this conference, but you could do like a whole cup thing. But yeah, the realistic part of that's probably the percentage is not very high because I don't think like the SEC, for example, would go for that. We'll play the Big 10, but we're not guaranteeing that we're going to play those other two. And for example, if you could squeeze it in, like South Carolina would want to play Clemson, so that'd be their ACC rep, and then they'd play their Big 10 challenge. But do they want to play Oklahoma State?
I would say that you would have to, and this is actually where I see it going when they talk about the next realignment. I think the next realignment is going to be what pushes the A4 off by itself. Because I don't think that you can.
Well, the rules are doing that in a lot of ways right now.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really what you have to watch. And now it's I think I'm more interested over the next 5 years, unfortunately for the teams that aren't, but the jockeying among the A4 schools. But if you do that, if you have that autonomy together, and you have the scheduling, you can all, rotate through each other. Instead of having to play one from the other conference every year, why don't you play 2 from the other conference and then you can play a G6 school?
So you mean to tell me, though, that a Power 4 school, no matter what conference, that has 3 non-conference games at home to fill their stadium to make a ton of money is going to give up one of those games?
No, they're not, but not a lot of them play 3 non-conference games at home.
Yeah.
Some of them can because they have 4 non-conference games. Looking at you, ACC and SEC, so you can have 3, but nobody else does that really. I mean, I think Texas Tech might not leave Lubbock this year, if I remember correctly. Maybe they do, but it's not very common that you have all 3 at home. It happens, and there's definitely some schedules we've gone over where that's the case, but it's definitely not the majority of schools that have that set up. You typically have 2, and then you have 1 road game somewhere or another. But, yeah, there's just too much that people would be giving up. It's a good idea, which is why it won't happen.
The Office fan, as an OU fan, I'm 100% in agreement. It should be a 9-game conference schedule. Everybody should be on equal standing.
Yeah, the thing I hate about that is just when you pull it's just different. It's just more difficult. And it's like, so is that just in perpetuity? So that's just the new law that we live by because you said so, that because it's been really good for 20 years, that means that forever and ever that 8 equals 9 in your estimation?
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. And I think only homers probably really agree with that ultimately. And I think if you really love the SEC, you'd want to see another game, especially in an expanded playoff era, where it's not going to hurt you as much to get dinged with one more SEC game because you're going to get 4 or 5 teams in every single year. 4 alone, just for starters, if things keep going the way that they're going right now. So yeah, I'd love to just see everybody be equal, but I know it's not equal in some years and in some cases. So I understand the pushback, but we all know the solution to the pushback is not everybody else getting better. It's ESPN saying, okay, we'll give you the money for a 9th conference game. That's when the 9th conference game will happen.
If they gave them more money, they'll do it.
Not for any other reason, not because of superiority or anything like that. If ESPN says we'll pay you for it, they'll do it, and then that'll be done. And then the ACC will need to get their 9th game going somehow, but I don't think ESPN's as keen to probably pay them for that as they are for the SEC.
The Office fan, I don't care who they play the other 3 games. I just want everybody to play 9 conference games.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Good stuff. Appreciate that.
I want everybody to play 8.
Or 8, yeah.
I mean,
everybody do the same thing.
I would rather than play 9 because I think that means that we're going to get at least one better game per schedule per year, as opposed to if you let them all play 8, then that guarantees at least one dud and probably a second dud on the schedule.
Yeah.
For most teams.
We've talked about this, and I'm just throwing it out there because what about the schools that have to play those games against Texas or Michigan or Georgia or even Baylor and Texas Tech, that for them to survive, the UTSAs of the world have to play those non-conference games on the road. They have to. Otherwise, they're not going to survive. We just not care. I'm not saying it's poor, pitiful me. Do we take that into consideration?
I mean, you take into consideration, but our opinion on it doesn't matter. I mean, we're not the ones making the calls. I don't think Michigan cares if UTSA lives or dies. I'm sorry. I really don't think that they ultimately care. Or Southern Cal is really all that worried about Tarleton State making budget. I don't think they care. I think every move that's being made is to siphon up the money, not siphon it down. Realignment wasn't to benefit the Mountain West. Realignment wasn't to benefit the American. Realignment was to siphon up everything again, right? So, yeah, I mean, I understand that at some point we've got to go, oh, yeah, but what about, and I agree with that. I actually, clearly as somebody who talks about the Big 12 quite a bit, even though I have the team I root for is in the SEC, I have a sympathy for that. But that's me. That's not the guys calling the shots, and the guys calling the shots have made it pretty clear that they have little to no interest in floating teams for the sake of tradition or making sure they make their budget every year. I don't think that's going to go to the wayside just yet. I think that's some of the fear-mongering, but you can see where a lot of things are headed to where, yeah, that's probably in jeopardy sooner rather than later. And that would be, a very real concern for schools who depend on getting $500,000 for going up to Ann Arbor and, getting beat by Michigan. So, yeah, I don't know how that works for them.
Like Appalachian State. And then Fish goes, the Citadel now will no longer, they're going to vote down your podcast. I don't know. Craig, I just showed that I had a heart. I brought up the schools that need that money. I hope that does continue for them because in the long run, to me, it's not just about 25 or 30 teams. It's about college football history.
I'm pro Citadel and pro those teams, but like I said, I'm not in charge of it.
No, that's exactly right.
That's not for me. That's for the people who actually make those shots. And so if it was up to me, hell, we wouldn't be doing half the stuff we're doing right now. The playoff field would look different. Everything would probably look a little bit different if it was up to me, but looking at those teams and the actual realistic possibilities for them, they don't have sympathy. I don't feel like from the people making the decisions. I don't know that their best interest is in those people's minds, and that would be concerning for sure.
All right, one quick basketball note. Well, actually, there's 2. One of them is a mention. We'll get to it. Arizona's basketball court. Their president, their AAD, Desiree Reed Francois, put this up. I was there, Arizona, in the 90s, and that cactus logo meant something and was unique to Tucson. I wanted to make sure our fans' voices were heard, and we listened to them. And then Arizona, of course, your court or our court is your court. So they added the cactus this year, which is it's a cool-looking thing to me. I love that, the uniqueness of the court in Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah, I can't wait to see people shoot threes from it.
Shoot threes from the cactus.
I think you ought to get 3 for outside the arc. You get 4 from that first limb. If you shoot at the very top of the key, that's a 5-point shot. And if you shoot at the one on the right, the other one raising its hand before midcourt, it's 6.
Yeah, well, Arizona fans chose this. This is what they wanted, and so they got what they wanted. And, it's a nice nostalgia boost, and seeing that logo just for me, much less I can imagine for Arizona fans. So, yeah, I think that looks cool. It's very unique. It's very Arizona, and, I like that. I think that's a good initiative on their part, a good change on their part, so that's cool.
All right, and also Matt Driscoll, who had been the head coach at North Florida, had been on staff with Scott Drew, like many who have gone on to be head basketball coaches, report now he's about to join K-State with Jerome Tang. They know each other because of the connection back in Waco, and so Matt Driscoll takes over on the staff with Jerome Tang as K-State moves forward with that.
My man, Matt Driscoll, he was the nicest person to me when I first started in this business, and was great to me. So happy that he's going back to hang out with Jerome Tang and help him out. I think Jerome Tang needs the help. And given the way that, this is akin to, Chip Kelly leaving UCLA to go to Ohio State, right? And that you're, a head coach at a smaller school. I'm not so much so sure how much longer Coach Driscoll would have lasted there. They've had some good success there, but lately the Ospreys have been kind of, third to fifth in the league most years and not winning it, and that's a one-bid league. So, 16 years is a long time to be somewhere for a coach, and so that was a good run. Now he can go get back in the Big 12, and this is another one that's going to give Scott Drew a headache now that he's got another one of his guys on Jerome Tang's staff that he was very, very close. He still is very close with Matt Driscoll, but Matt's a really great guy, and he'll be a very welcome addition for K-State.
All right. Anything else? Garrett, we got it all?
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Valade is already working on the polls. He put one up earlier. There'll be another one later on. Craig will have off the radar. We're not going to get into it. We're not going to but what a night in hockey and also the NBA. We'll have that later on today at 4:45. But coming up next from ESPN, National College Football writer Max Olson, whose family is expecting another child. So congratulations to Max. He's next. This is 365 Sports.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Right now at Berg Collision Ford, we're bringing you an offer that's as big as America. Employee pricing for everyone. You pay what they pay. That means you drive home a new Ford F-150, Bronco Sport, Expedition, Super Duty. From America, for America. Employee pricing for everyone at BK Ford. Looking to sell your vehicle? Get top dollar for yours today. Don't miss out. Employee pricing is available for a limited time. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Experience better at BK Ford.
I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. This is how I wanna live. I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
365 Sports on this Thursday afternoon. Max Olson from ESPN joins us with Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, David Smoak. Max, normally we jump into portal news with you and a lot. By the way, congratulations on the pending news with yet another youngin', as somebody put in the chat room, a tax exemption. Thank you for your time today. So what are your thoughts about the seeding? It's not a surprise, but the seeding this year immediately will go, no conference champions get money, but the seedings will be 1 through 12 based on who they are and how good they are.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty expected compromise and adjustment for year 2 of this. And I think not just because, the top 4 seeds in last year's tournament, or in last year's bracket all got knocked out in their first games, but I just think I think the intentions were good at the beginning of making conference championships matter. And then I think as we probably went through that process, that weekly process of here's what the bracket would look like, I think you kind of saw it created maybe more confusion than was necessary. And then when you get into it, it's like, okay, are Boise and Arizona State 2 of the best teams in the country, 2 of the 4 best teams in the country? Probably not. So I'll tell you what, guys, you look at that bracket of what it would have been this last year. But if you just go straight seeding, I think if you're Oregon, you're looking at that and saying, we could have played for a national championship. I mean, I think that they certainly, you get a bye, and as you did before, but you get an easier matchup the second round. Then you get Notre Dame. Could they get past Notre Dame potentially? I think probably Oregon is the one that you look back and say, like, man, best team in the country got bounced in a buzzsaw game in the Rose Bowl. Probably a different fate for the Ducks if we had this format a year ago.
Max, do you think that this negotiation where, agreeing on money and distribution is a good sign for maybe not getting automatic qualifiers, which the ACC, Big 12, and G6 are all against?
I think you do have to kind of separate, here's the plan for this next one versus here's the plan going forward. And, I think, truthfully, I think the suggestions that it should be 4-4-2-2, I think are a little bit concerning, obviously for everybody outside of Big Ten and SEC country. And I'm curious to see if that is what they plan to do here going forward. If it's 14 or 16, I think that will impact it a little bit. I certainly now that this is in the rear view, you can put the focus on what it's going to be a year from now. And I think we're heading towards a setup that is certainly not as equitable as this one is going to be. How bad is it going to be? I think that's certainly for Jim Phillips and Brett Yormark a fight that is ongoing.
So, Max, for the last couple of years, really since this last realignment wave got going with the Texas-Oklahoma bombshell and then everything that came after that, I've been seeing on social media or seeing on YouTube why Notre Dame will eventually be forced to join a conference. And I'm just failing, especially in light of today's news, to see why they've had any reason to move or budge off of that, because now they get to have a first-round bye, right?
That's right. Yeah, they have the opportunity to have a first-round bye as a top 4 seed. I would imagine that whatever playoff format gets set up for the following years, there's still going to be an at-large. There's still going to be a kind of a reserve space for Notre Dame when they're deserving. So, yeah, I don't think today's news or the way this is trending is pointing in that direction that they have to be in the Big Ten or the ACC. So, I think it's pretty status quo for them, and this is probably all things considered, today's news is good news for the Irish.
Max, how long do you think it will take them to settle on the new format? Do you think that now that this is settled with the straight seeding that maybe the 16-team thing will go faster, or do you think this now allows it to slow down a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's one of the kind of key differences here is, certainly making changes to this playoff required unanimous decision. And you can tell just by all the reporting around this of what it's going to be like in 26 and beyond, that this is, the SEC and the Big Ten Sankey Fachidi certainly grab the wheel and have a much stronger say in what that is going to be. And so, I think that arrangement that they've come to here, is you could argue, hey, maybe that's going to expedite it a little bit, but maybe it doesn't have to be quite as unanimous as this is. But yeah, I don't know. I think we'd all love to just have the answer to that sooner than later, especially the TV networks and the schools. So I don't know how long it's going to take, but you can kind of tell by what's being floated out there the direction it's heading.
So it seems like the College Football Commission is already like almost, I guess, DOA. So what was your favorite memory from the last 2 weeks of the College Football Commission that was proposed?
I don't think the president ever commented on it ever, did he?
He's pausing it as of today. Yeah, apparently,
right. But the step we were waiting for was Donald Trump announcing this commission, and that just straight up did not happen. So, big agenda there, kind of makes sense. Yeah, I think the statements from Nick Saban of like we don't need one were a little bit eyebrow raising, right? This week. I think certainly Cody Campbell, it has close connections with this White House, and I'm sure we'll continue to try to push them in the direction he thinks is best for the future of this sport. But, to what extent Saban and other people want to get involved in this stuff, really unclear. I think we're also just like, it's an interesting detail and all this stuff, but, man, you can tell there's just a huge mess to come no matter what here.
When the star of the show says we don't need to do this, that's always bad for it. And allegedly, there's some movement on this bipartisan commission, but
what they're saying is that it's a pause from Trump, and that it's an effort to give Ted Cruz and Cory Booker more time to come up with a co-sponsored bill or some sort of legislation. So the pause for the committee, and they're trying to find another way that I guess would be more advantageous to maybe actually getting something done, as opposed to a group of people just sitting around and talking about, hey, NIL is out of whack or something.
Yeah. So, Max, like these things, I don't know if we'll ever get an answer on all this politically.
No, and it's I'm thankful this is not my specific beat that I have to cover for ESPN with college football, because certainly the political side of this stuff has ramped up the last few years, but we still don't, other than a bunch of hearings, like we still don't really have a lot to show for it.
Max, one thing, and I know you got to go, but in college football, the transfer portal, the NIL, the House settlement, and the college football playoff, it seems like everything's about what is going on with the game. Do you get tired of sometimes not talking about the game itself?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like, and I'm curious how your listeners feel about that, because I like, these are stories that have helped, these sort of big lightning rod storylines have like helped turn college football into a 12-month sport where there's something to talk about every day. But, it does sort of feel like ever since COVID, we've spent a ton of time talking about everything but the games that are played on the field and who has the best teams and best players and all that stuff. It even feels like high school recruiting is like kind of slipped into the background a little bit more than it used to, compared to all of this stuff. So like, as someone whose job is a lot of focus on roster management and roster building and trying to look ahead. It's been interesting to see when you hit the off season, there's just a ton of things going on all the time, and very little of it involves helmets and jerseys, right? I think that's just how this is going to continue to go as we wade into post house and things like employment and collective bargaining and all of the steps that I think are probably inevitable here, but will take years to execute.
Max, high school recruiting, I think, this is just from my perspective as, a fan of one school. I used to really kind of get excited about it on signing day, like, oh man, this guy's a this and that. Now it's like being a foster dog parent. Like I don't know I'm going to get to keep this dog. So I hate to compare them to that, but like, you just don't want to get attached. So it's probably hard for a lot of fans now to be like, hey, I'm super excited. We signed the number one, like ask any Texas A&M fan about their number one class. Like, The 3 guys?
Yeah,
left
like
from it?
maybe like wait till they're a junior before you buy their jersey, for example.
Yeah. So it's hard to get excited.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I just think that the portal stuff is like it kind of brings this instant gratification in terms of like, oh man, we got better faster with this stuff, and these players are going to be starters and they matter, and that if these pay off, then we're going to be really good this year. Like that stuff has just sort of overtaken the attention, and understandably so, especially with the money that is thrown at these guys. And with high school recruiting, it just seems like other than like the really elite 5 stars or big storylines, that whole developmental piece of it is just becoming more and more underrated. And certainly the retention piece, like you talk about, and keeping a guy in your program for 4 or 5 years and turning them into the best they can be, that's just not really the recipe so much for a lot of these programs at the highest level now. So, it's a shift. It's a shift, and it's something that you kind of like when you're dealing with the portal stuff every day, and you just see, 3,000 guys go in every year, or 2,000, to 3,000 guys go in every year. It's just like, man, it's the thought process for these guys throughout the college career is just totally different than it was 10 years ago.
Max, congratulations on the upcoming gift that's about to arrive within the Olson family. Is this number 2?
Thank you. Yeah, number 2. We are having a daughter here pretty soon, and so I will be going off the grid here a little bit this summer. We'll see you boys at Big 12 Media Days in Frisco, but may be going off the radar here a little bit. And gosh, hopefully all these issues that we're talking about, I hope they all get resolved by the time I get back.
Yeah, you get to miss them.
6 weeks should be, and that's not plenty of time.
Yeah, you good luck with that. Enjoy the time off. Enjoy that moment and the memories. Thanks for your time, buddy. Appreciate it, Max.
Appreciate it.
Max Olson, ESPN, with us on 365 Sports. He goes off the grid for a good amount of time. He told me he'll see us at Big 12 Media Days in Frisco at the Star. And other than that, I think he doesn't get back until perhaps late July or maybe in early August. Update the Big 12 baseball. Is that final now that West Virginia hammered Cincinnati? They now move into the game with Arizona, who earlier today beat BYU. And then this afternoon, Oklahoma State, KU, with the winner of that game playing in the semifinals against either Houston or TCU. They play later on this evening. That's up in Arlington, Texas.
I mean, they're not going to find a better stadium as far as comfort for the fans, but I can see where just the cavernous, empty seating and being under the dome, like maybe there will be something better to being in a smaller stadium and having some sunshine just to give it more of a fresh layer than I mean, that's a great ballpark. I can imagine the players and coaches don't want to change, especially the Texas schools or the Oklahoma schools, but it does feel like there's not a whole lot of energy behind it unless you have a dog in the fight watching them play indoors.
And part of it also is like we criticized it yesterday when we were watching, but when you have noon and 3 or 4 o'clock first pitches in the middle of the week, like major league teams don't fill their stadiums all the time on that. Sometimes it's just about getting the games in. So if the Rangers have been playing at noon on a Wednesday at Globe Life, it wouldn't be full either. It'd be more, but so it's really hard. I don't know. So I would say just move it to the thing is they probably want to move to a smaller venue so it looks more full and they're not doing all this, and they have, there's fields all over the place. So it's a good thing, all around, but the bottom line is, though, that you are moving outside in the heat, so that's going to be a thing. But if you can fill up 5,000 as opposed to 25,000, then that's probably going to look better.
Texas leads Tennessee in the SEC. I think it's in the second or third inning. West Virginia won 10-3. We mentioned that. A&M beat Auburn 3-2. That's their second win at the SEC tournament after, of course, a very incredibly disappointing year with the Aggies after starting the year at number 1. All right, when we come back, we will hear from Brian Estridge, voice of TCU. They have that game tonight in baseball, but we'll check in with him on Sonny Dykes and the Horned Frogs and more. This is 365 Sports. Baylor alumni fan engagement, the Baylor alumni fan engagement with Doug Furch and Paul Thorpe. And I asked Doug earlier this week, hey, can you give me a couple of nuggets about what to think about when it comes to the summer, because for the most part, things have calmed down. He said this: they'll have the Texas Tour events in Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, with coaches visiting various parts of the state now that things are at least somewhat calmed down. Fall kickoff lunch with the legend. Nick Florence, by the way, will be the guest speaker. And, of course, the home tailgates and the game with SMU, where they have Bears on the road, tailgating at the Bush Library on the SMU campus. So contact the Baylor Alumni Fan Engagement, Paul Thorpe or Doug First, for more information. More information, go to baylor.edu.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions, IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
365 Sports. Thank you for your time. Brian Estridge, voice of TCU Athletics, will join us in a moment. I mentioned TCU plays this evening. We'll have Riot on to discuss TCU. Who have we not really I know we've had all 16 programs in the Big 12. We've even had coaches on. In some cases, even the defensive coordinator at Texas Tech and Shill Wood. Who have we not really had as an analyst or enough of when it comes to the Big 12 this year? I guess during the spring and also this spring semester.
I think it's a better question for Chet. I feel like we talked to everybody dozen times already.
I know. I get it. For example, we have certain fan bases that are more prevalent in the chat than others. But I feel like I went over that list. I cross-checked the list. We've had broadcasters of each team on. I do think that Colorado has kind of flown under the radar, which is interesting. You know, we were trying to get Matt McChesney on the show today, but couldn't do it. So maybe for him tomorrow. But that's one of the schools we have not really been able to get as much information as we normally would.
I don't think they have a very big reporting core based on my own things that I'm trying to do outside of this show. There's not a lot of options outside of like a couple of outlets. There's what how do you pronounce those? Is it DNVR? Is that how would you pronounce that? Or is it Denver
I think
Sports?
They just say Denver.
It's just okay. Yeah. So like that, for example, I know does a lot of Colorado stuff. Outside of that, I see little to absolutely nothing elsewhere for the most part, and maybe a channel or two here and there. But it feels like they're like so in-house, right? And there's only like a one or two outlets, as opposed to a lot of the other schools that have a handful of outlets. So yeah, I don't know. Colorado just seems it's almost like state media. If that makes sense with Dion there. It's just very like kind of incubated almost. It feels like they're on their own little island sometimes as opposed to being in the league like just everybody else is.
Yeah, if Matt McChesney can't join the show tomorrow, or if he can't, we'll get him on next week. Gary Barnett's an option or two, but you're right. It seemed like that there's a lot. I mean, Brian Howell is a guy that we've had on many times too when it comes to Colorado. And then somebody said, you know what, wet blanket, 16 teams is a lot of teams to cover. It really is.
It sucks, man. It's actually like I'm trying to do this other thing, and it's a little side project, and it'd be so much easier if the Big 12 was 12 teams or 10 teams. And I imagine this is the same thing for Big 10 and SEC. And I mean, everybody now at this point, everybody who's got these large conferences, like there's fun parts of it. If you're an Indiana fan, you now get to play Oregon every once in a while. So that's cool. Play Washington. Like that's a cool new road trip. But if you're doing like breakdowns and trying to touch and devote time to every team, it sucks because there's so many of them now that it's just a lot of ground to cover and try to wrap your head around. And I wouldn't trade it for digging ditches, I'll tell you that. But yeah, it's just a lot. It's a lot when you have 16 teams in a league to try and to cover all the right bases.
Yeah, I agree. We've dug deep into. Somebody mentioned Cincinnati. We've had a couple of analysts on Cincinnati, including Chad Brendel, who's been with us many different times, among others. So I was just curious, and you're right, Craig. Go to the chat and let them answer that question. Some will never.
I mean, Chad Brendel was on probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and there's not really any reason to check in with them again right now. But, yeah, I mean, I think Cincinnati does get lost in the shuffle. I think UCF gets lost in the shuffle. I think they're in danger of getting more lost in the shuffle this upcoming football season just because they're a team that has a lot of questions, and the whole Scott Frost story is cool and fun and everything, but it's not one that guarantees any wins. And so there's a real mystery as far as what to expect there. And because of that, I think that they're that team that just by default is going to be in the bottom of most people's preseason rankings. And maybe that will be justified because there is a lot that we don't know about them. But, yeah, I feel like they're kind of just sort of not floating out there, but I do feel like we're kind of – it can be easy to forget them sometimes, like right now because they're not in the main focus of competing for the top of the league. So they kind of just drift a little bit towards the bottom, and you maybe don't touch on them as much. But we had Mark on a lot.
Mark Daniels, yeah.
So yeah, it's maybe been a little bit while.
Brandon Hellwig, he was on with us early as well, and then there are coaches. And then there are, just to sometimes let you know about how we get coaches on, I send a text and or an email to every single school. There are some that are much more open and accessible than others. That doesn't mean the others are playing hard to get or whatever, but we were told we'd get Scott Frost soon after they finished up their spring, which we hope we do, and at some point we will. And when we get to Big 12 Media Days, we will just grab them and bring them over to the table.
I'll just say
Frost, I'll handle him.
I'll just say it. I don't even care. There's like some coaches that are apparently just untouchable that we apparently cannot interview.
There's 2 in the conference.
Deion Sanders, which is not a surprise, and then Mike Gundy is the other one that like just we don't. There's been 100 attempts for nothing, and I feel like Kenny Dillingham's almost becoming that in a way. Yeah, I think he's getting close to being untouchable, based on the responses. But, yeah, Deion and Gundy, that's been tried 1,000 times. Dillingham 500 times because he hadn't been I guess maybe in focus as much.
There's always something, and Doug does a great job. We've had a player on, a young man from Tatum High School in Tatum, Texas. We've had a lot of people who cover ASU, including Chris Cartman, but that's been a timing issue. One of the frustrating things, I got to be honest with you, he was at Pro Day. He was there at Pro Day to watch a couple of his players, and would have been easy to just come up and see us, but it didn't work out. So we're not giving that up. We're not giving up on any of that. But the Mike Gundy thing, he just really doesn't do much media outside of the local media. You really don't see him on a lot of other places.
No, and look, that's his prerogative. But
Oklahoma City, maybe Tulsa, obviously, and then the Stillwater market too.
But yeah, I don't. I guess I don't want to give him a break, but not give Dion or Kenny Dillingham a break for the same thing. In fact, he's been doing this to everybody way longer. So, in fact, he's the most repeat offender of "I'm too good to talk to you."
Shit, man. I'm going to say it this way, but Dave Aranda doesn't do interviews now.
Yeah.
The dude who's right here.
Yep.
We can't even get him. So, I mean, it's just part of the deal. But I know that he, for a fact, turned down. So we're not the only ones that and we're not complaining about it. Just saying, if we haven't had certain person on, here's why. For example, those 3 head coaches, we've tried, but we can't get them no matter what. But with Aranda now, I mean, we know for a fact that he turned down
some national
one of the
podcasts.
biggest college football podcasts that's out there, and they wanted to come to town and do an interview with him. They're doing a sit-down series everywhere. That's what they typically do. And Dave Aranda had no interest. And you know what? I think that's probably a bad call because I think you probably should be marketing your team, but I understand that he's Dave Aranda and he does things differently. And so marketing is not really his front of mind, desire to go and worry about that versus the X's and O's and the NIL piece and everything else that he has to worry about. So, he's also part of that group.
Yeah, he is. The access there is nothing compared to what it was before. Believe me, the media relations would like it to be more, and it's not their call. Some guys can push a little bit more than others, but it's not like Brent isn't trying to make that happen. We have him, Garrett?
Not yet.
Okay, well, waiting on Brian Estridge, voice of TCU Athletics. And the Kenny Dillingham thing is now he's more of a rock star than he was when we first started trying to get him at Arizona State. And I've had some conversations with others about ADs, and what I actually contacted 3 to 5 of the media relations people last week and even earlier this week. What their deal is some of the ADs are stuck right now. That doesn't mean they can't come on like Jamie Pollard, among others, Gene Taylor. They're stuck right now because of so much that is still unknown until the House settlement, whatever happens with that. And even if things change after that, they're really kind of stuck in neutral on what they can discuss.
I want the words House settlement to be banned and burned and done away with. I am so sick of hearing House settlement, and I get why it's important and why you've got to keep saying it, but my God, am I sick of hearing House settlement.
Hey, when they finally put it to bed, it's going to be the biggest relief ever. When it's over. I mean, again, we'll have to continue to say under the terms of the House settlement. But as far as not knowing what the hell's going to happen with it, I can't wait for that to be solved. And I have this genuine worry that
it means nothing in the long run.
It means nothing in the long run. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's lawyers going, yeah, you passed that bad boy, and just wait. Once you drop that, here's your first lawsuit is probably what some of them are thinking. Yeah. But I mean, that feels like it's been a piece that has dragged on. And we thought here in the last couple of weeks that maybe they would get that done, and then obviously they had to go back to the drawing board. So yeah, I feel like I've heard that every day for 1,000 straight days, the term House settlement, and that will be a glorious day when it's just done. And then, like you said, Paul, it'll probably just turn into another branch off of that into some other legal issue that takes months and months to try to solve.
We're going to take a break here. Remember when I brought up I can't wait for it to be over because so many and then I was basically back down on that there's still going to be so many things that don't get fixed no matter what.
Well, yeah, and I also think I don't agree with you either because as much as for example, the House settlement, I don't want to talk about that every day for the next 100 days like we had the last 100 days. But you have your world where the legal stuff isn't talked about, and good luck doing a 3-hour show on college football year round, because that's that along with like actual realignment, not the made up stuff, but like the actual realignment and the NIL piece and the transfer portal, as much as we may bitch and moan about certain things, those are the things that keep college football as an ecosystem year round now at this point, as opposed to being the like kind of 2-chapter story that it was like, hey, here's a couple weeks in spring and hey, here's the fall. And then everything in between is just all recruiting. That was killed with the last realignment shift about 3 years ago, because now it's turned into everything else, and that fills the airwaves. So I may complain about it, but I won't trade it off for just doing depth chart reports in the middle of May on Virginia Tech or something like that, So there is some good that comes out of it from a content standpoint.
We are joined by the voice of TCU athletics, Brian Estridge. He's got a game tonight at the Big 12 baseball tournament, but he joins us on 365 Sports. And Brian, thank you very much for your time with Paul Craig, Smokey as well. So in your opinion, and we'll get to baseball, but in your opinion, how would you summarize what we've had Sonny on, we've had others on from TCU, but how would you summarize what they got done for the most part?
You know what I think, and it's funny. By the way, I was at the Charles Schwab Challenge today, the
Colonial. All right.
And, yeah, of course. And got hit up a bunch with that same question. As a matter of fact, Dave, and I tell you the thing that I kept saying was under the radar. That I really think that this team and this roster is still sort of living under the radar, and I think that's a good thing. I sense, and I don't say that's just because of following the games. I sense an air of confidence about this group. I see how they've gotten along in the spring and in the summer, and it hasn't been a mass exodus. It hasn't been, a mass influx of new faces. It wasn't living and dying by the portal. It was sort of, okay, a refocus, a re-energize, but also I think it was a case of, we were able to plug some holes according to them. And so I think there's a level of confidence leading into this thing that if you're a TCU fan, it should give you some hope.
Brian,
by the way, David, would you, after talking to all the folks, did you kind of get that same answer from them? I'm curious.
Yeah, I did. I think that they feel like there's a calm confidence, quiet confidence, not too much that's out there about, like promoting themselves, but they feel really good about what they filled in the offseason, and also those coming through the system, which we don't see that as much anymore because of the portal. And, when you got a quarterback like Josh Hoover running the ship who has a chance to be an NFL player, I think that helps too.
Well, and David, you and I have a common mentor who told us every day it's about the damn quarterback.
Yes.
And it's always about the quarterback.
Yeah.
And if you got a guy like Josh Hoover that gives you a chance, who's committed to the program, who, as you well know, and folks, they don't want to talk about it at TCU, but I thought they should have, was being courted by other schools with big dollars and he elected to stay.
Mm-hmm.
I think that says a little bit about the roster that he knows that he's going to be dealing with and the talent that he's got coming back, and a little bit about this coaching staff that he works with.
Brian, I've thought about that a lot with Josh Hoover in Tennessee and seeing what was going on there. I'm sure there's a lot of people across SEC country that are like, I cannot believe that he wouldn't do it. Like, how could you stay at TCU and not go to Tennessee? I think, the money I don't think would have been like life-changingly different, because he's probably getting a nice little chunk at TCU being the level that he is.
Well,
and the questions are less.
He's making David Smoak money here now.
Well, see, there we go.
So he's doing okay at TCU.
So do you go to Tennessee and then you walk into Knoxville after spring's already over, going into the fall, not having to really learn a new offense because it's essentially the same, but now the whole city of Knoxville is like, hey, get us back to the playoff. You're help me, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope. I don't know if that's something I would want to walk into, given what and how it went down in Knoxville.
Yeah, and not knowing the roster. They're a talented team. You could see what they had last year, but the locker room. Mm-hmm. You know the kind of guys that you're dealing with. You know the players that you got on your roster, and so I think that goes a long way in making that decision as well. Plus, you've eaten at Calhoun's in Knoxville, and you've eaten at Railhead in Fort Worth. Where would you rather eat? Barbecue. It's a no-brainer. So you got to find the right things, man, that you got to be proud of.
Brian, Josh Hoover's obviously the headliner. Who are the other guys that maybe are not being talked about or should be talked about more than they are right now, in your opinion, as far as making an impact next season?
Yeah, keep an eye on Major Everhart. I think he's a guy on offense. He's going to be a playmaker, a difference maker, a guy that can really kind of create some stuff for you. I think he's a guy that, they want to get him the football. I think they want to see what he can do in the open. I think there's a couple of guys like that, to be honest with you, that they just want to see sort of season. The guys that you want to see really sort of propel themselves to the next level. And I think you're going to see that on really both sides of the ball too, guys. I mean, you got a couple of linebackers that nobody even knows about that I think they're going to be that have the potential to be pretty special players here. They got better at defensive line, So I think you got a couple of different areas to where this team is actually going to look a little bit different. The thing that stands out to me is they are, this is a word no one has ever used to describe me, but I think it's a really good compliment. This is a lean team. They're not fat. They're taller. They're leaner. But I don't mean that they won't be able to handle the battle and don't have the strength, because they do. It's just, this is a team that's in really, really good shape. When I walk out there and watch them, I'm like, these guys, I mean, there is a difference with this group than last year.
Well, now that Spencer Drango, Bryce Petty, Seth Russell, Jared Stidham, and everybody else has joined the TCU coaching staff.
Right.
Do you have to sometimes, even though Kendall's been there for a while, Kaz has been there for a while, that you still have to double take who's walking around that facility?
I tell you, it is early on. I wouldn't be lying to you, Smokey, if I said it wasn't strange at first. It was. But because, if you're at TCU, you'd been indoctrinated into this, us versus them mentality. And once you got to know these guys, and once you got to see how they take care of their players and how the players like them, and then really just what kind of quality men and coaches they are, you kind of get past all that. J-Mo and I talk about that all the time. It's like the two rosters have been split as far as coaches are concerned. You got a couple of TCU guys, at Baylor now. On the right, who are really good dudes, who are really good coaches, and now you got the same thing happening here at TCU with Baylor guys here in Fort Worth. I mean, you sort of get past all that and let it prove itself out on the field. And I think last year, really for both teams, both sets of coaches who flip flop proved that they were doing what's best for their program. I mean, if you're making that kind of money, I think you work your tail off no matter who you work for. Right?
Paul Gonzalez had been at TCU back during the Patterson years. A hell of a pickup for Dave Aranda. They needed that as an addition with Palage in the secondary. How good was he at TCU? And also finding the diamonds in the rough in the secondary, which TCU is so good at.
Phenomenal. I'm telling you, you're talking about, I mean, this dude is a great coach and a better man, great husband and father. I love the guy. Was a great college baseball player. He approaches the game a little differently, and I love that. He kind of approaches it with that baseball mentality, of putting that play behind you, putting that game behind you, putting that strike behind you that you took forward. He's one of those guys that makes it happen. I tell you, I think he's going to be a great addition for what they're doing down at Baylor.
Brian, why have they not been able to hit on the running back in the last couple of years?
I think it's been a couple of things, really. I mean, I think it's, you had some injuries for one thing. I think that has been one of the issues. You were rolling the dice at Trey Sanders from Alabama, who was, the number 4 running back in the country when he came out of high school, was going to be that guy for you after the auto injury, and he was never the same. I think those were sort of some of the things you had to overcome. And here's the other issue. I mean, you guys probably know, there's been 3 running back coaches here in the last 4 years. And I think that probably might have something to do with it too. So, I think they've kind of settled in, and I think that, I think there's an opportunity now. I think they feel real good about that room, that there are 4 or 5 guys that can be difference makers in the backfield. And here's the other thing. Just in being candid and being honest, the offensive line the last couple of years, it's back into last year, they got a lot better. But, 2 years ago, this offensive line wasn't very good. Earl Campbell would have well, okay, maybe not Earl Campbell, but some guys would have struggled behind. And so I think that plays a lot into it, and we can't discount that. But I think this offensive line got better, especially toward the back half of the year last year, and they're more athletic this year than they've been maybe since Sonny got.
When Gary Patterson was basically on his way out at TCU, and then he goes to Texas, and of course he spent time on and off at Baylor.
Right.
I know that wasn't a very happy divorce, and I know a lot of feelings were hurt, and especially his, I would think. And now he's going into the TCU Athletics Hall of Fame. He earned that. Yeah. He deserves to be a part of that. Is that going to be a little bit awkward, or is everything going to be kumbaya?
I think it's getting close to being kumbaya. I don't know that it'll ever quite be totally there, but I do know that he and the athletic director the new athletic director spent some quality time together a couple of weeks ago. And, I think they know that they need Gary Patterson in the fold. I mean, the guy won a lot of games here, made a lot of to him as well as it should be. So I think all of that plays into it. I mean, and let's face it, he's in Fort Worth. He's not going anywhere. So he doesn't need to be a pariah. He needs to be part of the program. And I think the powers that be sort of realize that.
You mentioned
plus here's the other thing, David. You got to change in administration. You got a new athletic director. Mm-hmm. You got a chancellor that is retiring. Both of those guys were part of the separation, if you will. So I think that maybe those wounds can heal a little bit with new faces.
Give us the real reason why TCU and SMU won't be playing too much further into the future.
They hate each other. I mean, other than that, I don't. I don't know. I think there's a lot of. I shouldn't say it that way. That's not very Christian-like from TCU, right? No, I think I just think it's two programs that are trying really hard to make sure they're in the mix when that next separation happens, and so there's real competition there. And so why put yourself in a situation where one can use that against the other in that conversation? And so I think that kind of figures into it. I mean, me personally, I wish we played, but that I'm not making those decisions. I think it's a rivalry that needs to be played. But maybe in the future, we'll see.
Scotty Scheffler, you mentioned the Charles Schwab Challenge at the Colonial. It's an unbelievable. It's an old school course. It's an unbelievable setting. To have him there, where a lot of guys, and that's home for him. Obviously, the Nelson and also Colonial from where he's from. To have him play, because a lot of guys might have backed out after winning the major. We've seen that before. What does it mean to the tournament that he's in it and that he's there?
But just basing it on the crowds that we saw here today, it means a lot. Big crowds today, huge gallery following Scheffler around as he's teed off at about 12:35 this afternoon. I mean, it was good for the tournament that he was here. And you know what I really think made a difference for him and why he ended up sticking around is the fact that you had a Wish for Wings event going on yesterday. And he was part of that to a young girl who's just graduated from kindergarten, who's overcoming some hard ailments. And he was going to make sure that he was here for that. And to me, I think that says a lot about the kind of guy that he is. I mean, he could have easily pulled out, that. And for him to say, no, I committed to being there on this Wednesday for this young girl, and so I'm going to play in the tournament. I think that's pretty special.
TCU tonight against Houston in the nightcap, in the quarterfinals, so to speak.
Yep.
Your thoughts about the Frogs in baseball?
I think this is what they feel like is one of their more talented teams that they've ever had. And you got Kirk Saarloos now in charge of the pitching staff, which is probably his, what he needs to be doing. So you got to feel comfortable about that. The thing that people you can't lose sight of is this Houston game. You chalk that up as feeling like an automatic win for TCU, right? But Todd Whitting, the coach of the Cougars, used to be here at TCU, wanted the job when Kirk Saarloos got it. Don't think he ain't going to have those guys fired up about it. And when those two teams meet, you can just see it in Houston's eyes, man. They want to beat the Frogs, and Todd wants to beat the Frogs. So I'm looking forward to an emotional game here tonight. I'm looking forward to a great college baseball game. I think the Big 12 tournament, we need to see some really good baseball coming out of it, because I think we got to start regaining some respect across the country, and really in every sport in this league. And I think especially in baseball, man. I think in baseball, this league doesn't need to slip. I mean, there's really no excuse for that, to be honest with you. The baseball is too good in this part of the world. and there's plenty of players to go around. And so I think it all starts this year with this Big 12 tournament.
We will see you in Frisco in a little while. Thank you for your time, Brian.
Love you guys. Thank you.
That Brian Estridge, voice of TCU, touching on a few things, including the fact that PGA champion Scotty Scheffler in his backyard playing at the Colonial in Fort Worth. Josh Hoover, they have the same feeling about him that a lot of teams in the Big 12. Because of who the quarterback is, you feel even better about maybe how you like your team, whether you're a fan, a coach and staff, whoever it might be. And yes, boy, you wonder what's it been like in Provo because of the Jake Retzlaff story yesterday and how I saw some back and forth and what's going to happen and what we don't know. But that story right there obviously interrupted their early summer.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't follow up on it, but BYU put out a statement last night. What was most interesting was, I guess it was Provo Police put out their statement, and I've never seen a police department do this. I mean, I'm sure it's happened somewhere else, but they basically were like, we don't know if this is her for sure, but yeah, here we go.
Here we go.
But the whole statement was, we don't know if it was her for sure, but based on like the clues, basically, we think we know it's this girl, and they didn't say her name. And then they went on to explain like why they didn't pursue anything. And this was part of that, was collective evidence was examined and revealed no actionable investigative leads. Our victim advocates followed up several times to offer services, but received no response. And that was part of what they had to say. And they pushed back pretty greatly on the allegations that they persuaded her to not pursue anything or that they didn't do their jobs correctly. So they came out in force to make that statement. And BYU was a bit more, I guess, I don't think muted is the right word, but BYU just had something very simple like, hey, this is in-house. We're not going to talk about a legal matter. And that's really all they said. Provo Police were like, they were like giving details basically without naming names, but like she came to us, we asked, she didn't want to pursue. So they definitely covered their backside in defense of the allegations. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, it's probably going to be mediated or whatever behind the scenes, and I don't know what's next, but it's not a good look, obviously. I've seen all of the questions about honor code violations and things like that. I'm not going to pretend to know all the ins and outs of how that works, but it's something that's going to follow him, especially if they're successful. It's something that's going to be brought up and something that will probably trail him for at least a little while, whether that's deserved or not. Whatever happened, I want the truth to come out, and I want, if somebody needs to be punished, for them to be punished. That's all.
This kind of thing isn't uncommon, though, for a police department to decide there's not enough evidence and then there to be evidence, or for them not to, test a rape kit or things like that. So, like, this is only their response to things. So I know that there's oh, well, she must be, trying to drum up. No, let it play out and see what really happened. We see it. It's more likely that, statistically that she's telling the truth than she's lying, but we've seen that other side jump up recently in the last couple of years, especially when it comes to athletes.
Yeah, so there's a whole to-do about like the whole name sharing thing and why she didn't want to share her name, and also if you've followed enough of these cases or know enough of these cases, it's not at all uncommon for the victim to not be cooperative. I mean, that's not like a big red flag of a false claim. That could just be the situation itself, and that's when I won't pretend to try to relate and be in someone's shoes who's going through that, and that's where it all can kind of get messy with people. Well, wouldn't you do this if you just had that? It's like, no, not necessarily. Yeah. If you just dealt with severe trauma. So again, no one knows but the people involved, and so you let the courts handle that, the police handle that, and we'll see where it takes Jake Retzlaff ultimately. But if he's innocent, I hope that's found. Then if not, then, the proper punishment is deserved, just like with anything else.
All right. When we come back, the Off the Radar segment with Craig Smoak, a little bit around the corner, Chris Hummer from 247 on some statistics and trends when it comes to former blue chip high school recruits and where they have been or how often are they leaving. This is 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Car Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports, and getting into some topics about things going on outside of the typical house settlement or the normal college football conversation, getting into some different things outside there in the world of sports. And I don't know what you guys are referring to that you said off air, so you're going to have to tell me on air.
Texas Tech transfer Darian Williams, who was on campus at Kansas just 2 days ago, right before the dead period started. Whiff on Kansas's part. Darian Williams going to NC State, and they missed on Dame Sarr, who they had committed a couple weeks for a long time. He committed to Duke today, and they missed out on Darian Williams as well.
So we'll wait.
Yep.
And the Wolfpack get Darian Williams.
Yep. So there you go. Thank you for adding that. And we're talking about that prior to going on. I couldn't hear him as we got onto here. So yeah, there's a little bit of news for you that is definitely off the radar. And I guess that is interesting. So how are you feeling about Kansas basketball heading into next year?
Not good right now.
Yeah.
Well, how's the household this evening?
Let's see. What did she say? Oh no, Bill must have a plan, but he's going to need to figure it out. So,
okay.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that he will. He gets paid a lot of money to do that. So there you go. Kansas whiffs on Texas Tech's Darian Williams, and he is headed elsewhere. So there you go with that. There's still portal moves being made, huh? I mean, when does that stop?
Well, basketball,
I know.
You're waiting for the draft thing to be over. And so there's, a bunch of guys who are going to leave the draft. PJ Haggerty is probably the next big name. And right now, Kansas State leader in the clubhouse for him. So we'll see.
Okay. Well, we'll see where that goes. Meanwhile, some news out of the NFL, just for entertainment purposes. I have not watched this show in a long time. I don't know how often you guys have watched Hard Knocks, but there's been some new Hard Knocks announcements. So that definitely qualifies as something off the radar, as the Bills will be featured on Hard Knocks. The training camp edition has been announced. Buffalo and Josh Allen. It feels like they haven't really landed the top teams, and I could be totally wrong in feeling that way, but it almost feels like it was resorted to all right, who's the worst team that meets the criteria that would be willing to do this show? And that feels like sort of where we were. And now it's the Buffalo Bills, so that's actually kind of exciting, especially if you're a Bills fan, and something that feels like a definite difference. So Hard Knocks training camp will be the Buffalo Bills. Now, there will also be Hard Knocks in season, and that is the second year that they've been doing that. They looked at the AFC North last year, and I did not watch a single piece of that, so I don't know how it differed or how it was any better or worse than the training camp edition of Hard Knocks. I think it would probably be better, right? Because you're dealing with actual games and you're dealing with people actually on the team and not the guys who are maybe going to get cut in one episode or whatever, but it's the in-season drama. So that is going to continue after last year featuring the AFC North. It will now feature the NFC East. So the Commanders and the Eagles and the Giants and the Cowboys will be part of Hard Knocks in-season Bills Hard Knocks training camp. Those announcements made by the NFL.
Yeah, I haven't watched the in-season. I think it might be maybe a little bit more interesting, just that, or at least a little less heartbreaking, because it feels a little bit like watching like American Idol, and you like the, oh man, the country singer is really good, and then he gets voted off in the middle. Mm-hmm. You're kind of bummed about that defensive lineman or wide receiver you liked who had a good story.
Gets cut,
and then he gets cut, and you're like, well, damn, So that sucks, but it's part of the drama of the show. I wonder how much
the access changes in season than during training camp.
I think if they agree to it, then they got it. Yeah, they know.
They got cameras everywhere.
I don't think they're really I don't think they're really afraid of it. I don't think that the Commanders are sitting around worried that the Giants are going to see something and win because of Hard Knocks. That I think that there is some final cut that happens among the organizations, and they've been doing it long enough. I think they know what not to put in there.
Okay. All right.
So there you go. NFC East in-season Hard Knocks and Buffalo Bills Hard Knocks training camp editions. Meanwhile, in the NFL, a major passing. You probably have seen at this point, but Jim Irsay, longtime owner of the Indianapolis Colts, died at age 65 yesterday. He's a guy that's very influential in the game. And man, you see 65, and the older you get, you realize, like, that's not that old. I mean, it seems old, especially when you're younger, but man alive. So the Colts saying in a statement last night, we are devastated to announce our beloved owner and CEO, Jim Irsay, passed away peacefully in his sleep this afternoon. Jim's dedication and passion for the Indianapolis Colts, in addition to his generosity, commitment to the community, and most importantly, his love for his family, were unsurpassed. Our deepest sympathies go to his daughters, Carly Irsay Gordon, Casey Foy, Kaylin Jackson, his entire family, as we grieve them. A lot of other statements from around the league. He had been dealing with some health issues, which included respiratory illness in January of last year and March of last year, but apparently it had surgery and was doing better. But as it was mentioned, his 26th surgery in the past 7 years. So
wow,
to make it to 65 seems like it's far too young, but also it seems like, man, he was very lucky to even make it to 65. Last year, his final year, as it turns out, 38th with the Indianapolis Colts. And there's a lot of different things we can mention about his career, but from the NFL.com article, he was the youngest general manager in the NFL, 25 years old when he took over in 1984. So I can imagine 25 years old running. Now, that would not happen these days unless you're just like some rocket scientist.
I mean, his dad was the owner. So
yeah, well, that's true. Yeah. But I mean, just the thought of a guy running an NFL team at 25, especially in this day and age, seems like it's being possible. But yeah, there is that to it. He took over principal owner 13 years later in 1997, 16 playoff trips during his tenure, 2 AFC championships, and the 1 Super Bowl. So, yeah, Roger Goodell, many others had a statement, kind of reflecting and whatnot. So, yeah, Jim Irsay, very influential guy, passes away.
One of the best owners, apparently, from what I've been reading, to work for. Everybody who worked for him, everybody got all the non-football personnel got lunches just like the players do. They always had lunches. They had, he would send them on trips, like not work trips, but he would just he called it team building. Like, hey, you guys are all going to Las Vegas, go ahead and go have a blast, and do that. He really took care of not only just the players and the coaches, but everybody in the organization. Was very passionate about charitable causes in the city of Indianapolis and the state of Indiana. And so he'll be missed in a lot of ways. He was very eccentric and a different kind of an owner. And his daughters are going to take over. He's made it clear that that's the family business, and they're not going to, of course they're going to they would have to make that decision. But I think they've been training under him and learning for all this time. So it's not like they're pulling him in out of some other world and saying, hey, it's your team now. Figure it out, ladies. But the daughter's going to run the team. So I think that's good for the Colts.
He's an SMU grad. Didn't know that. Yeah, SMU grad. A little local note to that. His dad bought the team when he was 12. He was 12 years old when they acquired the Baltimore Colts. What was the word you say? Eccentric?
Yeah, he was eccentric. He was different.
He had moments. He had some things that he was battling. I didn't realize he had that many surgeries, but I always found him to be okay. I know a lot of people either liked him or not, but thoughts and prayers to the Irsay family.
So that was a major passing in the NFL. Meanwhile, the big topic in the NFL the last few days was the votes that were going to be cast for a variety of different topics, including the tush push. And it looked at one point when I talked about this a day or two ago, like it had gone from not likely to pass to looking like it possibly could pass to not passing after all. The plan to try and cancel out the tush push. The Eagles get to continue to do their thing and bring rugby to American football as best they can. So the Eagles barely getting this proposal knocked down, but it needed 24 votes to pass, and there was only 22 out of the 32, so 2 votes short of the approval that was needed. So the 10 teams that voted against the proposal, this has been talked about quite a bit in the last 24 hours for those that are invested in this topic, but the Eagles obviously voted against the proposal. That was obvious that they would do that. But the other ones joining them, the Baltimore Ravens voted against, the Browns, the Lions, the Jaguars, Dolphins, Patriots, Saints, Jets, and Titans. And apparently they had asked Jerry about it, and there's a clip of him, and he said, I don't know, I flip-flop. And he clearly did not vote for it, or did not vote, would it be for it or against it? He did not vote for the tush push to be banned, clearly because they've now documented. So he was playing coy and not admitting, but it's now been made clear that, the Cowboys voted to get rid of it as well. Everybody in the NFC East did, as you could imagine, but it didn't matter. They got enough.
Look, Jerry kind of was playing coy because it's a win-win for him. If the Eagles can't do the thing that they're the only team that can do it, then the Eagles get screwed. If they can't, then so what? You can't stop it anyway, and now you can maybe try to do it if you figure it out. I have no hope that they can, but for the NFC East teams, it was a win-win to vote no on it, because if the Eagles get screwed, then you win. If the Eagles don't get screwed, then what's different?
Nothing changes. Yeah, I never was against the play. I never was for banning the play or changing it up. I just think if you can't stop something, figure out a way to do it or do it yourself.
Yeah, I believe that too, to an extent, but I also think that's just like kind of a blanket thing you could say about a lot of stuff about why it shouldn't change. It's like, oh, well, just stop it then. Like, well, that shouldn't always be the point. It's like, it doesn't mean it's good because you can't stop it. So I don't think that's the greatest defense in the world either, is, oh, well, you can't stop it, so you shouldn't. No, I actually heard a really compelling argument from Bob Sturm of The Ticket talking about how it's basically rugby. It's a rugby play that's been brought into American football, and he outlined his reasons as to why he doesn't like it. And yes, everybody else could do it if they wanted to, and everybody else could try and do it as well as the Eagles and the Bills have tried to. But he at least made out a case that had me going, you know what? I think I kind of am for this being banned, but I also see the other side of it. And I think ultimately it probably will get to that point. It's just not right now.
Here's my question. How do you actually, there's a difference between if a running back comes running behind. I understand what the tush push is. I get it, what Philadelphia does. But is that just another judgment call made by officials where there are probably too many judgment calls just because of the way the game is played?
I mean, yeah, there's probably too many judgment calls.
If you have a full house backfield, which I know they don't do that anymore, and Hurts is under center, and you have a fullback and a tailback, can they not just slam in the back? Of course, that would be careful not to hurt him. But I don't know how you say no. That's the push. I think you can get really complicated on what is a penalty and what is not. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I don't know how that's being looked at or how they view that. But the tush push is remaining intact, so they don't have any worry up in Philadelphia about not having that in their repertoire this offseason. Meanwhile, NBA playoffs last night, thrilling game up in Madison Square Garden. The Knicks looked like they were going to take a 1-0 lead in the Eastern Conference Finals and just fell apart as Indiana is able to force overtime and then eventually get the win. Iowa State's Tyrese Halliburton, a big part of the Pacers' run and their win last night, 138-135, the final score at Madison Square Garden, as the MSG faithful just completely stunned by that outcome. So Indiana up 1-0 in that series. And tonight, it will be the Western Conference in the focus as we're now down to the nitty-gritty. The Timberwolves at Oklahoma City, 7:30 on ESPN. Oklahoma City already up 1-0, trying to make it 2-0 at home. We already know Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be regular season MVP based on reports, and so he's got an opportunity to also be the postseason MVP. That's kind of the talk from last night in watching some of the commentary surrounding just what's remaining in the playoffs. But we're down to 4, down to the conference finals, and Oklahoma City, like I said, looking to go up 2-0 later tonight.
I watched that next game last night, and the last 5-7 minutes of that game was an absolute folding on their part because at the beginning of the fourth quarter, Jalen Brunson had 5 fouls with 10 minutes left to go in the game and had to sit out. And so you thought they were going to fall behind, but Karl Anthony Towns went bananas. And they were drilling them. And then all of a sudden, Andrew Nesmith just looks over at Reggie Smith and channeled his inner Reggie and doesn't miss any threes. And then, man, Halliburton thought he'd won the game, but he was stepping on the line. So
that was wild.
It was wild. I saw a lot of people complaining online, how can Reggie do the game? I thought it was awesome that Reggie was doing the game. It was great because he's a great team with Kevin Harlan and Stan Van Gundy. So it was
he's got to do that game.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
By the way, in the Knicks' loss, up until last night, a team up by 14 going into the last 2 minutes and 45 seconds of a playoff game since 1997, they were 994-0. So that is an amazing stat that was broken last night.
Well, I guess 994-1 now at this point. So, yeah, that was pretty incredible. For those that missed it, highly dramatic and a fun end to that game unless you were a Knicks fan, unless you were there in Madison Square Garden. So, tonight, Western Conference's turn. And then tonight, NHL. Yesterday, you had the Stars getting their first win in the series, 6-3, winning Game 1 over the Edmonton Oilers. So, Stars now up 1-0. And then tonight, you've got more action upcoming as we will flip over to the Eastern Conference, and it'll be Florida-Carolina Game 2. Panthers on the road, but lead that series 1-0. Face off at 7 on TNT, True TV, and Max. So got one NBA game tonight, one NHL game tonight, and we're getting close to just being baseball season here pretty soon. But Garrett, any thoughts on the Stars' big win last night?
It was nice. This is the first time, dude, where I've seen them look like these Stars and play up to their ability in probably 2 months. And I know a lot of that goes back to health and the issues they've battled. You had Tyler Seguin come out. He had the breakaway goal. He ended up with 2. I was honestly pissed because in the first half or the first couple of periods, they blown 2 power plays. It was just pathetic. And then all of a sudden, man, that third period starts and you reel off 3 power play goals in a row. Simply remarkable. Miro Heiskanen starting to come back into his own now that he's getting his skates and legs under him. Matt Duchene finally got back in the mix. If Dallas can play like this, I think they can win it. Honestly, I think Florida's going to come out of the East. But if Dallas can match them and play the way they did last night, they're going to get the cup. 5 goals in one period. It was ridiculous.
That's crazy.
It was. I turned it on. It was 3-1 Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
And from all indications, looking at a couple of different feeds on Twitter from those who are hockey aficionados, that it was not even, it should have been worse.
No, yeah, Edmonton owned them.
It was a dominant, and then all of a sudden, bang, the penalty at the end of the second period that led into the third period obviously was kind of a kickstart, but what a dominant win considering that. But last year they could not score on a power play. against Edmonton, and last night they obliterated them with the power play.
Yeah, I mean, they struggled with the power play all year, and then last night it finally got to rolling, so it was awesome.
Hey, look, your numbers eventually balance out, right?
Yep.
They just got them all at once.
They were 0-14 in a power play against Edmonton last year in the finals, in the conference final.
Well, they turned that around at just the right time, and an explosion there in the third, and the Stars are up 1-0, so they'll get the day off and then get back to it. But tonight it is the other side of the bracket. So, got a game apiece in the NBA and NHL, and there's a few things off the radar.
All right, Craig, thank you very much. There was a story that Paul sent out to our mass text group about college football transfer portal by the numbers, what 7 years of data tells us about NFL development and more. It also talks about the blue chips, where they used to leave or when they used to leave. There's the, excuse me, I know there's a cough button. There's a tweet from Chris Hummer. He, in fact, will join us in the next segment to discuss the project, the story, and more. And this is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. 5 locations in Waco, and it wasn't long ago there were no locations at all. Bob Mock has been in the pizza business for a long, long time. I have always had a soft spot. One, I love pizza. I love eating pizza. But I also have a soft spot for the business itself because I used to deliver pizzas for a long time. Summer money. That was my money in between college semesters or in between summers. Always enjoyed it. It was kind of neat to get to know it, and Bob Mock knows it from start to finish. He's been in all the positions, whether a driver, somebody that prepared the pizza, managing a store or stores, and now the owner of 5 locations in Waco, the fastest growing pizza brand in America. With more information on specials for not just pizza, but all of what they have in the menu, go to marcos.com. Pizza lovers get it.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza.
Okay,
those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch, and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Chris Hummert joins us, 365 Sports from 247 Sports. Had a story out today. The number of 247, the top transfers for each class since 2018, the trend of them moving into the portal. Chris, thank you very much. How you doing? How's it been?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You're like he was not listening.
He was deep in thought.
He was
which great writers always are.
All right, without us, why don't you tell us the project and the story behind what you wrote about?
No offense to y'all. It's my wife's birthday, and I was responding to a text from my wife, so I apologize about that.
Very smart man.
Yeah, you gotta put those priorities first, otherwise you end up in trouble. But yeah, the article today was about like the transfer portal era and the amount of guys who have moved on during that time. We tried to look at top 247 players who are essentially the 247 best players every cycle according to our rankings, and they transfer at a really staggering rate. Like if you remove the 2024 and 2023 classes that haven't been on campus for 3 years yet, those players move on 54% of the time. So it's not only normal for players to transfer, it's not only accepted, it's the path the majority of elite recruits take in their career at this point.
Do you think that revenue sharing will curb that?
To a degree, potentially. I think you see less high quality players move. I think we saw that in the transfer portal this year. There just weren't as many star players from the P4 level moving on because their schools can afford to keep them. So that money does make a difference. But like at the end of the day, no. I think part of the thing with transfers is like the numbers here, like these guys are still projects. Like even 4-star blue chip guys are still projects at the end of the day. And a lot of those guys are going to look for a change of scenery. And I think the ability to do so and the hope of a change of scenery changing your career trajectory is always going to get a player to move on. And there's also going to be some cases in which a really good player at a school is going to be tempted by more money. There are just more reasons for players to transfer than ever. And I don't think that changes necessarily under rev share. I think what would help in the rev share era is getting rid of that extra year of COVID eligibility that is finally starting to expire. There's just less opportunities for players to transfer then. But yeah, like transfers might drop a little, but I don't expect that momentum to slow much.
You mean COVID? There are still some COVID years left, like a bad thing of milk in your refrigerator? The expiration date, it just seems like it never ends?
Yeah, I think you might want to check like some of those milk cartons in the fridge. For sure. These guys have, I mean, Cam Rising might not be in college football, but there are a lot of guys from the 2019 class still kicking around college football that are in their 7th years. I think there's a couple of 8th year players in college football too. So like a lot of these guys are well on the way of their doctorate degrees, potentially just with as long as they've been in college. But we're finally like phasing that out a little bit, and eligibility will be easier to figure out once again here in a year or two.
With all due respect, I don't know how many are actually working on their doctorate degree, but maybe.
Yeah, probably not. Probably their bachelor's, but like,
yeah, you never know. Maybe
over in school,
a veterinarian or something. Yeah,
Coach, I can't come to practice. I've got to pitch my thesis.
Yeah,
defending my doctoral thesis. No, Chris, the way things have moved around though, and it continue to move around makes it really confusing. Do you think that people look at these numbers the way that you've done them as a thing, or is the problem they're not looking specifically at the things that you just did, where you're like, these are the 3-time transfers or multi-time transfers, and they're just kind of saying everything's bad?
Do you mean like, who do you mean?
Like the powers that be. Do you think that they have looked into this as specifically as you have?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, the NCAA is boxed in terms of its ability to enforce anything. Mm-hmm. I think like, so, right. Like you hear like the corny commercials where most college athletes go on to be professionals in anything else other than sports. That's like, it's true at the end of the day. And transferring can be really damaging to a player's ability to graduate. Like you don't carry credits over in a lot of cases. Like I think you develop worse as a football player in a lot of cases for moving around, but like there's no guardrails against it because the NCAA keeps losing lawsuits, and the NCAA keeps losing lawsuits because it doesn't have an antitrust exemption and it doesn't collectively bargain with its athletes. So even if like the best intentioned people at the NCAA or in the Power 4 governance wanted to throttle transferring rates, they really don't have the mechanism to do so because they're not really allowed to enforce. Because as we've seen, like if you try to enforce something, somebody's going to sue about it. And like people, even when the NCAA tends to enforce the rules, tend to get upset about it. Like the reason why the NCAA's enforcement mechanism is broken is because Nico Iamaleava got a huge high school deal. Tennessee didn't want him to be deemed ineligible. The state sued on behalf of Nico. It essentially crippled what the NCAA can do to enforce their rules. And then Nico left anyway. So like these things don't happen because like the NCAA is largely handcuffed on the ability to do anything about it.
We need to leave the police rules alone in the enforcement. But when it comes to speeding laws, can we fight those?
Yeah.
Can we? I've tried to fight them. I don't win them ever. But
I think,
I've tried
I think the success rate for athletes suing the NCAA is a little higher.
A little bit higher. Believe me, I know my insurance policy knows that too.
To go back to it, and we haven't really even talked about it on the show, but Zakai Zeigler from Tennessee is suing about the redshirt rule.
The basketball star, right?
Yeah, which would be 5 years to play 5. Ultimately, I mean, whether or not maybe he wins. I don't know. His is a little bit different than everybody else's because the redshirt rule doesn't really restrict you as much as maybe he thinks it does. And a lot of people say it's in there to help players stay a little bit longer. But do you think they'll eventually go to 5 to play 5?
Eventually, yeah. I don't know when that'll happen or how it'll be granted. The NCAA, as you said, like Zakai Zeigler's case is one of the most fascinating out there right now. It has the largest ramifications possible if he's granted a preliminary injunction. So that would be pretty massive change to the sport and would cause quite a bit of chaos. But yeah, I do think eventually the NCAA will move in a direction where, or I don't know, whatever governing mechanism comes after the NCAA in a couple of years, potentially. I do think that will happen. The question is like, how do you actually implement that? Because whoever, like, right, somebody always gets screwed when a rule change happens.
Yep.
And when this rule change happens, there will be an entire class of players the year before that essentially is going to complain that they did not get the opportunity to use that full 5th year. And there will be lawsuits. So I think that is certainly a concern of the NCAA's as they kind of examine that rule. But I do think eventually that will happen. I think that is the direction the sport is heading. I just don't know when that'll occur.
If NIL wasn't in play, would he have a chance to win this argument that he's losing money because he can't play another year of college?
I think it's unlikely. I mean, I'm no lawyer. I write about college football for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to deal with any of that. But it seems like a commonality in terms of the cases that have been won in these circumstances are players who have been able to claim significant NIL losses. Diego Pavia, one of the big reasons the judge in that case gave him a preliminary injunction was his like argument that he's going to lose out on potentially millions of dollars in NIL his senior or his upcoming year. The same thing happened with Jet Elid, who's a running back at Rutgers. He just won an injunction against the NCAA about his use of his JUCO eligibility rule, and that it gets more complicated beyond the Diego Pavia stuff. But a big reason the judge cited in that case was he's projected to make anywhere from like $500,000 to $600,000 next year. And I think if Zakai Zeigler did not have the ability to show that he'd be losing a significant amount of money by not playing that year, this would be tossed out pretty quickly. But I think a lot of it just depends on how the judge determines and thinks about the rule, because like this has been very judge dependent over the last few months as to whether a person wins or loses a case.
Chris, not on the subject of player movement, but on the CFP, how do you feel about straight seating? And do you think this is still headed to automatic qualifiers when they get to 16?
I think straight seating makes sense. I don't think anybody can look. I mean, no offense to Boise State. You had a great year last year. Ashton Jeanty was one of the best players in the country, most exciting players of the last decade. But I don't think anybody can look at Boise State and say they deserved a bye more than some of the other teams ranked ahead of them in the standings, especially when I think Boise State came in at 9 and they're getting an auto bid over teams ranked well ahead of it. This isn't the NFL where the divisions are pretty even. The salary cap makes the sport even. This is a sport in which like conferences are very different in terms of their structure. And I don't think it makes sense to have a team like Boise State or even frankly Arizona State, which had an awesome season coming out of the Big 12 last year, to host over some of the other teams that were maybe a little bit more deserving, had a more difficult path. And yes, I do think we're headed towards auto bids. I think what's to be determined is like how many auto bids each conference gets. I think the most likely is the 4-4-2-2 model or the 4-4-2-2 model, but that is still being discussed certainly.
So the new seeding, it appears that was probably Big Ten and SEC driven, right? But all the commissioners had to agree to this year. Now, next year, they take complete control as if they're not already in complete control. Is it to the point now where the Big 12 and the ACC just have to accept it, or the conference champions are going to get the $8 million? That doesn't mean we don't know who those 4 are going to be the highest, because it could be somebody from a G5. I doubt it, but it could be. Is it just to a point where they got to shove it? They can't do anything about it. They just got to deal with it if they want to survive?
Well, I think the conference champion being guaranteed $8 million goes a long way into making that an easier thing to pass especially for a year. Like at the end of the day, like this is just for 2025, 26, right? So like it's not the end of the world to make that adjustment. I think for the Big 12 and the ACC particularly, it's about picking your spots, where to push and where to not. They clearly have significantly less leverage in this situation than the Big 10 and the SEC. And largely, I think the Big 10 and the SEC will get their way in whatever they want. But yeah, in a situation like this, like I think it makes a lot of sense for the Big 12 and the ACC to be malleable, because like at the end of the day, like you're not going to win every argument, certainly in their case. And it's better to push your chips in where you think you have a chance to actually make a difference, in my view, at least.
Last thing on back to the story about the portal and blue chip or high level players who transferred. What number of prospects are considered top players in high school football? Top 300? Is it the top 150 that goes into the trend of what you put up today on your story?
I use the top 247, which is our ranking. We rank 24/7 Sports ranks the top 147 players each cycle. And that's what we use. The number of 4-star recruits every class can vary depending on what outlet you're looking at. But generally, like a 4-star recruit is going to be the top 300 to 350 players each cycle. But I use the top 247 because it's a measuring stick on our end of who we consider to be the top 247 players each cycle. Everybody after that isn't actually ranked like overall. They're only ranked by position. So we went with the top 247.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate your time. Have a great week. Rest of your week. Chris Hummer from 247 Sports. 46.2% of the top 247 recruits, the best of the best each cycle, have transferred at least once during the portal era. That number goes to 54.5% if you remove 23 and 24 from consideration, including, what is it, the class of, was it 20? What class is the top 8 quarterbacks have all transferred? The top 8 quarterbacks in an incoming high school recruiting class have all transferred.
Easy money.
Yeah.
Go somewhere like Quinn Ewers did, back up when you know you're probably going to back up, make $1 million, and then go in the transfer portal and go make another couple $1 million.
Absolutely.
Like it's almost smart.
Yeah,
honestly.
And
then if you don't, then you play early, and then you're playing there, and then even then, like we have a Nico situation. So
it was a class
hell of a time to be a quarterback that can, as long as you're able to play and you can hold your own.
I take that back. 7 of the top 8 quarterbacks, because Arch was a part of that. Remember, he's the one that is not yet transferred. Not yet.
He might as well have an asterisk because of the fact that, for one, he just likes Texas, and that's all that needs to be said. But also, he's not even receiving NIL, if you will, like a lot of these other guys, because of the advertisement money that he get. He's. I don't think we can use him to compare to everybody else.
No,
I think he's very unique.
He's the unicorn.
No, we knew that from the beginning. There were a lot of people like, oh, I guess Texas came with the best money. Like, no, he was going to get the same wherever he went. I mean, he's Arch Manning, and like,
give Sarkisian credit.
Yeah,
for
no,
that.
yeah, exactly. So like he wanted to be there. He's a unique situation in that because he's Arch Manning, he could have picked. I mean, like he could have gone to Boston College if he wanted to, and he would have gotten money. He could have made up the difference in collective money for doing one more endorsement, right? Because they just want to be, everybody wants to be involved with that Manning name. So, yeah, I don't think that's a fair comparison. Quinn got to double down, too, because, the reason he gave for picking Ohio State over Texas initially was that he could go up there and make NIL in his kombucha deal that he wasn't allowed to legally make here in Texas. So he left, went up there early, sat for a season, and then wasn't ever going to be the starting quarterback. Well, not ever, but like it was going to be longer for him to be the starting quarterback at Ohio State than it was at Texas, and comes back down and goes where he wanted to go in the first place.
I think I know that his last year that Arch was the shadow, whatever. Not that he was intended to be that. I really do appreciate what Quinn Ewers did get done at UT. I think it's underappreciated. I think he played with a hell of a lot of pain. I know that there were times it was like, what was that? But I do like what he did at UT. When we come back, Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. We have Paul's top 5 around the corner, and we also will see Andrew Valle's results of his 2 polls that he put up earlier today. And this is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace. I was there yesterday. Walked in. I normally have, there's a box they put the steaks that I get cut specific thickness, usually 1.25 inches, whether it's fillets or ribeyes, bone-in or otherwise. And so I called earlier in the day and I said, I'd like to order 6 ribeyes, 3 boneless, 3 bone-in. And the lady that answered the phone, I've known her enough that she knew exactly what the thickness would be, 1.25 inches. I said, what about 1.5 inches on a couple? She goes, that's pretty big. So I ordered, went by late yesterday morning, picked them up, and they are ready to go. I'm going to have one, a big old thick ribeye. I'm not sure if it's going to be boneless or bone-in. They're now in the freezer. I put them in some butcher paper wrap along with what they did as well. Man, their butcher shop is fantastic. From hamburger meat to whatever you want when it comes to steaks or briskets and more. And then when I was walking back to go pay, I was like, whoa, they have tiger shrimp, the larger shrimp, not as large as a small lobster tail, but big, nice size tiger shrimp. And I love using that specific size to do bacon wrapped shrimp. The bacon gets stuck to it really good. Of course, you got a toothpick or two, and I'm going to have a couple of those that I cook after marinating them a little bit between now and the weekend. Waco Custom Marketplace with a full-service bakery and butcher shop and all of what you need, really, when it comes to the hometown grocery-type look. They got cold beer and wine. Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. it's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers, everybody, the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
1, 2.
I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. He keeps me coming back. He cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy. Last name Barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
365 Sports on this Thursday afternoon. There he is, Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Are you home or at the office at the Star?
I got home just in time to do this.
There we go. We appreciate you doing that and beating that godforsaken traffic in the Dallas and Fort Worth area. Mickey, did you ever have any, like when you went to NFL meetings, and a lot of times I know you travel, did you ever have a chance to talk at all or listen to Jim Irsay?
I don't think so. I'm trying to remember if I had any interactions with him, maybe at NFL meeting or a Super Bowl, but that was about it.
I wonder if it, like when the Colts were there, when they were a part of the Super Bowl, and he might have been at a media session or something like that, doing a little impromptu thing.
I just remember him being very entertaining. Let's put it that way. A little different from his dad, right? When his dad picked up out of Baltimore and moved the Colts to Indianapolis. But yeah, he was pretty entertaining. And boy, when you see guys somewhat younger than you passing away, it's pretty sobering.
I know. Yep, I mentioned that.
Mickey, out of the OTAs here, I know that, the talk's always going to be Micah Parsons and, whatever is going to happen there. But on the field, the stuff that matters, it appears the Cowboys weren't kidding on draft day when they expect Tyler Booker to be a plug-and-play, like, first-day starter. They think he's that. So then the question on the offensive line is, now they've probably have maybe a deeper battle for the swing tackle than they have for the last few years based on the guys that have kind of collected on the roster and signed, which is something not really that I don't know if they've really done the same way over the last few years where it's felt like they got to a point where like, well, we need a swing tackle. Let's go sign this guy because we know he can step in and do it, like Chuma Edoga.
Yeah, and they really don't have a veteran guy to be able to step into that role. Now, the assumption is that Tyler Guyton's going to take the next step. And, because he was drafted more on potential than to come in and be a step-in starter. But that's what he was forced into when Edoga got hurt. There was no grace period there for him to try to ease into it. But now, I mean, when you're looking for a swing tackle, you're kind of sitting there going, well, okay, I got, maybe a veteran guy at the guard position. They got this, Charles guy that can maybe do both. But yeah, I think what you want there is more than just a young guy who hasn't really earned his stripes to step in and say, okay, if somebody gets hurt, I can do this either side. So that's one of the things I think they have to concentrate on. I think the other thing, Paul, that I'm just not sold that one of these two guys that they have backups to Dak Prescott could be your backup quarterback, meaning Dak gets hurt, say week 3, and he's going to miss 4 games. and this guy's going to step in, and you got a chance to, kind of keep your head above water. So I think they keep an eye on any free agent quarterbacks that have at least, won a game or 2 or 3 in the NFL that you can lean on.
If Booker had not been available, or they had not been able to get him, or somebody as good as he might be coming out of college at Alabama, what would they have done at right guard?
I think they would have given Brock Hoffman a chance to hold down that position, as he did late in the season after Zach Martin finally gave in and, quit trying to play through an ankle injury that needed surgery almost immediately after they took him out of the starting lineup. I think they probably would have looked there. They've signed a couple guys in free agency that would be kind of placeholders, but I think that would have been up for competition. And then who knows, David, what would have popped up in the second or third round. Preferably maybe the third round, you would have said, okay, we got to look there. But I thought it was very interesting that they're not making any bones about who's the starting right guard. Because a lot of times, when they get a guy in the draft and there's an open position, you give deference to maybe a veteran guy you had there to say, okay, you're going to practice with the first team and the young guy's got to earn his stripes. Well, when they did the OTAs that we got to witness on Tuesday, that Booker was right there with the presumptive first team offensive line. So yeah, they're not even messing around there. You're the guy, and that's the type of confidence they have in him and should have if indeed you're using the 12th pick in the draft on a guard.
Mickey, tight end is a position that they've always had a lot of success with, obviously, over the years. Last year was, I guess, a little bit down from the production for a myriad of reasons, injuries to all the different guys, and, Cooper Rush having to step in, and, all of that. What do you look for out of that position in this new offense that'll be more run heavy? And is this maybe I don't want to say make or break, or is this where they kind of see what all Luke Schoonmaker has in him? Because it appears that they'll be in a lot of 2 tight end sets running the ball.
Yeah, he's one of my guys when I wrote about last week that they've got several guys at positions that need to take the next step up. We always hear about next man up for an injury. Well, I think there's a few guys that need to take the next step. And I think Schoonmaker is one of those guys. Now, he had moments last year where it's like, okay, well, maybe. And I think that if they want to sink their teeth into a 2 tight end set and have both guys not only being threats in the receiving game, but be able to block, I think he needs to prove that, having spent a second round draft choice on him hasn't been a waste of time. He needs to take that next step. They have a young guy, John Stevens, that they picked up as an undrafted free agent who ended up suffering torn ACLs in each knee his first 2 years at training camp. He's kind of a down the field receiving threat. But again, they need guys that, if you're going to go 2 tight end, and as you said, be serious about running out of that, I think Overshown's the guy that has to be able to show that he was worthy of that second round pick. This is his 3rd year. It's time, right? I know, we heard all the time about, well, when Tom Landry was here, and, if you're a draft pick by the 3rd year, you need to either be starting or a significant role player. Well, it's time for Overshown.
Mickey, how much has the change in the schedule and what can be done during the offseason? Because it used to be a little bit more like you had the draft, you went straight into like rookie mini camp and this and that. The veterans showed up and then you had OT. How much has the schedule and the lack of being able to do much changed how you cover the offseason?
Yeah, when we get into the OTAs, it's like, oh, okay. It's hard to make any assessment conclusion on some of the young guys you bring in because they're not playing football. Someone asked me earlier in the week, well, what did you see in Tuesday's, practice? Well, I put it this way. I was surfing, I think it was Monday night, and I came across girls under 18 flag football championship game. And I'm thinking, watching that was about as physical as OTAs are. I mean, they're not allowed to do anything. And let me give you an example. Like, it's helmets, jerseys, shorts. And you're not allowed to do any one-on-one stuff with DBs and wide receivers. When you go to team, DBs aren't allowed to make contact with the wide receiver coming off the line of scrimmage. And you're not supposed to be able to, you can cover, meaning shadow routes as a DB, but you're not allowed to go and contest the pass. So, I don't know, they might have been halfway through the first 11-on-11, and one of the wide receivers and a cornerback got tangled up and they went to the ground. Immediately, Schottenheimer stopped practice, called everybody up, and my assumption was he was telling them, remember, we can't be, physical and have things like that happen. And the way he put it, and I think this is the best way to describe these OTAs, he says, we want to be very competitive in practice, but we don't want to be combative in practice. And that kind of sums up what OTAs are.
Mental reps.
Basically, yeah, and show
reps.
me that you know the play and you know your responsibility and your assignment, things like that. Now, It does give the quarterback and the wide receivers, especially in 7-on-7 drill, or not even 7-on-7, just 7-man skeleton, to get timing down and throw passes. So, and what I was writing for tomorrow, got a head start on it, is, one of the best things we've seen so far, and I think people take it for granted, is Dak Prescott was out there doing everything, right? Now, as he pointed out, he's not cleared for combat. Well, he's not, he's not going to have any physical contact until maybe training camp, but not really. They put the red jersey on and you better not touch him whatsoever. Who knows if he's going to play in a preseason game. So he's almost got, 2-3 months to continue recovering from his injury. But the good thing at this point is he's on the field and he's running 11-on-11 and he's throwing and he's moving around in some individual drills, just no contact yet. So to me, that's important because you better have your quarterback ready to go. I was looking at the quarterbacks that ended up playing in the playoffs. And I believe, if I remember correctly, looking at their deal, almost every quarterback that ended up getting their team into the playoffs started 17 of 17 games. And I think the only quarterback that wasn't held out of the last game because it was meaningless was Jalen Hurts when he suffered the concussion there at the end of the year, and he started 15 of 15 games. So to me, you better have your quarterback on the field. And I think I told you guys this last week that when I was watching the girls' high school flag football competition out there at the Star, the teams that won, by God, they had a quarterback that can throw the ball. Yeah. The teams that couldn't do anything offensively. And this is girls' flag football, but it's no different than high school, college, UFL, in the NFL, you got to have a functional quarterback on the field. So to me, I think we took for granted that, well, Dak's going to be ready. He'll be good to go. He's good now. Yeah, well, we needed to see it, and I think we saw it.
Mickey, last thing for me. The reason I asked you about Luke Schoonmaker is that Jake Ferguson is an impending free agent after the season. And while, we don't know, like, his extension is far on the back burner compared to the couple of the others that they probably want to do, like Deron Blander and especially Micah Parsons. But if Luke Schoonmaker does not perform all that well, then they've got a potential problem if they decide to let Jake Ferguson test the market, where you can see a guy go in and then be like, oh, well, that's not our number. So it's kind of a big, interesting year at tight end.
Yeah, I think so. And I think they need to develop some young guys there and continue to work on that. Like I said, from a receiving standpoint, I'd love to see John Stevens get an opportunity and show because he was, as a rookie, he was going to make this team coming out of Louisiana because he had spent early in his career as a wide receiver, and then he got moved to tight end. And the Cowboys saw him in some pro day workout, and, he's working out as a wide receiver, and they said, I think this guy can play tight end. He's big enough and he's fast enough. So, yeah, you need to continue to develop those guys, but you're right. And you might have to use another draft choice at some point on a tight end. But again, in the scheme of things and how you rank things, if your biggest worry is your tight end, you're probably in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Mickey, thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time. Enjoy the Memorial Day weekend if you can. Hope you do. Mickey Spagnola with us Thursdays in the 5 o'clock hour here on 365 Sports. So when we come back, Paul Catalina at his top 5, and around the corner after that, Andrew Valade is tallying. It's a word you don't hear much, tallying the votes of the 2 polls that he has. We'll tell you and look back at the questions and also your answers. This is 365 Sports.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com. Founded in 1910, Samsonite is the world leader in durable, high-quality luggage and travel accessories. Made to the highest standards, our products won't let you down. We give you the confidence to get out there and explore. Inspired by the past, devoted to the present, and built to inspire a multi-generational future, Samsonite is here to elevate your journey. Travel with Samsonite and pack confidence every step of the way. Shop now at shop.samsonite.com. Samsonite.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome in, Paul Catalina's Top 5. Tomorrow, I will go through the benefits of the straight seating system
for the college football playoff, which, as far as we know, is only going to last at least 1 year. But today, I like to do opposites. I tell you about venues with an aura. Today, let's go venues without any aura at all. This one pains me because I could literally run there right now. Stop laughing. McLean Stadium. It's brand new. It's beautiful. Everything is amazing. Press box, great. Like you could get in and you go right down to the media room in the elevator. It's unbelievable. The seats are great. The Lowe's boxes are great. The suites are great. They've had some really cool wins there. But the fans are what creates the aura. The legends are what creates the aura. And unfortunately, the biggest play in Baylor history happened at the old stadium at Floyd Casey when Robert Griffin hit Terrence Williams to beat Oklahoma, subsequently locking up the Heisman Trophy for himself. Not to say that it won't ever have any aura, but the fans have to do a little better job of giving it an aura. And the university has to do a little bit of better job of helping them create it. They're trying. I just don't think they quite know where to go. But they need to work on their aura. Also, I've heard this is a buzzword today on the internet. I'm sorry if it is. Number 4, Marlins Park and whatever the hell that is. When the Marlins were playing at the former Joe Robbie Pro Player, now Hard Rock Stadium, it didn't have aura as a baseball field either, but they won 2 World Series there. They moved here to a place that used to have aura. I'll tell you, the Orange Bowl, it had aura. Very much aura. Sometimes it was scary because of the neighborhood it's in. But Marlins Park was built in the old Orange Bowl site, and they haven't put much effort into the team since they built it. Usually when you build a new stadium, you put some effort into the team. The ownership of the Marlins really hasn't done that all that well since they built this park. Now, it's much nicer, but again, it's just a new building without anything to it. Number 3, the Frostbank Center in San Antonio. I say this to you as a dyed-in-the-wool Spurs fan. I've been there for several things. It's very fun. San Antonio is a great place. I love it. But the way that the ownership is very no frills. So the stadium is very nice. But like at times, if you turn down the wrong corner, you'll think you're in the wrong stadium because they quit talking about the 5 titles that they've won. And there's a lot of talk about the rodeo, also a big event. But, you know, when you step into a place like Lambeau Field or Fenway Park or Yankee Stadium, even the new one, like you have that, like the echoes of the past. This, you know, I mean, and maybe it's good. They're like, look, we won 5 titles. It's great, but we don't like to dwell in the past. We're always looking forward here in San Antonio. I don't know. It's missing a mystique. Number 2, Nissan Stadium in Nashville. A perfectly fine stadium for most of its existence, but it's about to be raised in a couple years once they get the new stadium right across the river there built. And the Titans, it wasn't for lack of trying. They've tried. They got close. If you'll remember, they were a yard away from the Super Bowl. But nothing's really happened in Nissan Stadium. It's probably why they need a new one. Get a new vibe there. For example, where the Predators play, a lot of vibe to it. A lot of vibe to it. Of course, there's a lot of stuff that goes on there. Here, it's just, It's just, That's why they're knocking it down. And a stadium that should be knocked down. A priest should come and consecrate it and make sure no other stadiums are built there because it's awful. And God said so a year ago. Please don't make the Rays play in this place anymore. No, we're going to keep dragging this out. Oh, yeah? Boom! The roof is gone. What do you think about that? No, we're going to rebuild it. Tropicana Field. This is the worst sports venue you will ever go to in your entire life. And I've been to the Oakland Coliseum where there's cobwebs on the cup holders. And the A's and Raiders left because the team wouldn't improve it.
The city fought with him, and rightfully so. It was a weird thing. Also, in a demilitarized zone, far better. And it did have an aura. Compared to this truck pull piece of crap. They shouldn't even host truck pulls there. Or dentist conventions. Or whatever they do when they're not playing baseball there. It sucks. It's awful. I lived there for 2 years. I went to a ton of games here. And it's because it was cheap and I love baseball. But the Rays deserve better. They deserve way better than this. The city has tried a million different ways. And the ownership group has tried the surrounding areas. But the city of St. Pete just keeps locking them in. And then they keep getting in political battles. It's ridiculous. This place is a dump. God tried to tell them. He tried. He ripped the roof off the thing. He ripped the roof off the thing when first responders are supposed to sleep in it during a hurricane. That's a message. That's biblical. Dear God, get rid of this thing. He already tried, and you ignored him. Build a new stadium. Give the Rays someplace their fans, the players deserve. It's ridiculous that they've had to play in here. I'm not even a Rays fan. In fact, I kind of hate them because they're in the AL East with the Red Sox. But this is an affront to sports fans everywhere. Rant over. Time for some polls. I'm tired.
Thank you, Paul. Always love it when you let it out.
Hey, look, I don't think I have stronger feelings about anything in sports, and this is 20 years of being a sports opinion guy, than I do about the suckage of Tropicana Field.
Yeah. Looks like a spaceship that came sideways into the earth.
It would like. Here's the thing: if we finally had aliens come and like add in that spaceship, instead of being excited, we'd be like, you guys suck. Why? Be ET or be nothing.
Be nice to it. It got hit by a hurricane lately.
Like I said, that was God.
Yeah. All right. Here are the Andrew Valade polls and results. Do you agree with the college football move, the playoff move to straight seeding? Pretty much split, yes and no. Neutral, not so sure. Let's see how it plays out, which we wish that sometimes a lot of people would do when it comes to many things in life, in sports too. 173 votes, pretty good feedback right there. And then on this one, wasn't there a second one? Yes. Who would you most like to see lead Team USA's flag football team? Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey, and Micah Parsons.
I would play Micah Parsons both ways. Just throw him the ball out in space and then dare people to try to grab his flag.
Will Mahomes do that?
What, go play flag football?
For an Olympic gold medal?
There's some thought that he's into it.
I guarantee you he's into it. He's a high-level competitor that has a chance to win an Olympic gold medal.
I think that's the ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so there we are, Andrew. Very nice. 70 votes for that one there. For Garrett Ross running the mothership today, and also Emery Winter, who is working on already the segments for tonight's 365 Sports Tonight at 10:30 on the CW. Andrew Valade, thank you very much for what you put up. And then Andrew, every night when he leaves the studio, sends everybody a, hey, everything's locked up and in. Thank you for doing that, Andrew. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, for you, our great audience and viewership, good night on 365 Sports.